down on your phone.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. No, it's not enough. The hurrier you go, the behinder you get.
I'm doing this
Right off.
beginning of the show very slowly here as you're trying to mute your
Are
phone.
we actually on?
Yes, you are.
Is it muted?
Yeah. No.
No?
You're muting your phone.
Hi. Welcome to the THC Show. Ah, nice puff of the sacred herb. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. THC, fantastic compound, and truth, hope, and change. Three fantastic things that we need to try to accomplish, and that's what we try to do on the show here. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson. On the show today, we're going to have 8 out of 10 Glenn, as always, join us for the 420 session. We'll visit the Healing Wave CSP RV, of course, as we always do, and update you on what's going on with that. And we'll cover a few of the different things that are going on here. So with the CSP, Cannabis Substitution Program, we've been saving people's lives, actually. I mean, it's a bold statement, but it's absolutely true. And in fact, it's not me that says that, it's all the people that we've helped. So many people, their mantra is that cannabis saved my life. And with what's been going on over the last several years of so many people dying of fatal overdoses to do with a poison drug supply, to do with opioids and other powders that are getting fentanyl mixed into them primarily, that's the reason. Cannabis is so amazing in that in the form of high dose edibles, it can actually do similar things to what these opioids and other hard drugs do. Not in the sense that they're addictive, not in the sense that they wipe out your ability to think straight, and those sorts of things. But as far as the potency of high dose edibles, they are such that you can really offset those other drugs. You can deal with the pain that those other drugs are dealing with and the emotional upheaval that those other drugs are attempting to help people with or do give some people some relief from. And the high dose edibles can work for that. The key that we've talked about all along, and if you're a regular watcher of the show, I mean, I'm just repeating myself and I'm sorry about that, but high dose edibles gets people through withdrawal. The big barrier to getting off of those drugs, the reason that those drugs are considered addictive, is the fact that you can't stop using them without going through serious physical and emotional pain, mental pain. And that's the big barrier. And cannabis high dose edibles helps people with that. So we've been demonstrating, if you will, for over 6 years now, just how effective and how safe cannabis high dose edibles are. Now, in that length of time, we've had so-called legalization happen in Canada, which I'm going to get to later on the show because I always need to do that for those people who are just tuning in, who don't really understand, who maybe think that, hey, Canada's legalized weed, isn't that great? Not so much. Canada's legalized weed for the rich people, and they've kept the price artificially high, higher even than what it was during Prohibition times. And the people that are eliminated from that scheme of legalization, of course, are those people that need to have large amounts of cannabis. And in fact, the Trudeau cartel isn't even allowing people to have high dose edibles at all. They're very much afraid that it's going to become actual science knowledge, and it is, but I mean, they've tried to avoid it. Health Canada says that cannabis still has no medical value, but I'll tell you the high dose edibles have extreme medical value for those people that are suffering with all sorts of different serious conditions, where the high dose edibles give them relief. And with respect to the overdose crisis, high dose edibles gets people through withdrawal and replaces the use of those other drugs. So it's been a very interesting 6-year-long demonstration. And it's been not without its bumps in the road, that's for sure. And the biggest bump in the road for sure is that now that we have had legalization, I think for over 3 years now here in Canada, that legalization still doesn't include us. So legal to have possession of cannabis, legal to grow yourself 4 plants in most provinces, and depending on the terms of your housing, whether or not you're able to do that. But as far as the federal government is concerned, every household can have up to 4 plants, and a person can have cannabis on them. And because there's cannabis that's being grown and traded amongst people legally, They don't track the DNA of the pot that you have to make sure that you have government legal pot. But that could happen down the road, and that's what they had planned to do if they hadn't been forced into allowing for people to have 4 plants per household. But the downside of it all is that the medical people and a group like us isn't included in legalization, even though it's been 6 years. Even though we had put in a few years before legalization even happened of correctly demonstrating and demonstrating and proving that cannabis high-dose edibles can be safe. We literally flooded the neighborhood here with bi-weekly giveaways of hundreds of care packs with half a dozen high-dose edibles in each one. And we did that for a number of years at Vandu, and that's before legalization happened. When legalization happened, we had to put in an application. That's how it worked out. I mean, originally, we didn't do anything when legalization happened, but then the city of Vancouver, partly because of legalization, partly because of the success that we had in having people kick the hard drugs, they passed a motion unanimously to support what we were doing in the form of low barrier access. But then they wouldn't support us until the federal government does. And we have been waiting on the federal government for over 2.5 years. That's a ridiculous number. In a public health emergency, our federal government has been presented with a life-saving measure that has been successfully working for years leading up to that point in time. And when an application is put forward that spells all that out clearly, the safety and the efficacy of what we're doing, and it's 2.5 years later, and we still don't have any government support on that. The municipal government is still not giving us a business license until the federal government does. They're all waiting. We've been charged with selling without a license because that's what the VPD felt they had to do, although they never stopped us, never told us to stop, even gave us back the RV that we operate out of. Part of the long story if you don't know. But just recently here, back on the 13th of March, I got an email from Health Canada, from their Special Licensing and Exemption Division, stating that their intent was to refuse our application. That's the second time that they've given us an intent to refuse. The first one was April 22nd of this year, and we were given until September 2nd to respond to that, and we did. And now, as of March 13th, well, 6 months it's taken them to have a look at our response to their intent to refuse. They've come up with another intent to refuse that we get to respond to with the same basic premise as the first one. First, that we're not using all regulated cannabis, that all the cannabis that we're using here with the CSP and the Healing Wave does not come from regulated sources. That's their number one big thing. The second one is that they will not permit, your public servants in Ottawa will not permit full-grown adults to have access to high-dose cannabis edibles because they're too dangerous. High-dose cannabis edibles are nowhere near as dangerous as vodka or whiskey, tequila, commercial tobacco. It ain't as dangerous as white sugar. It isn't as dangerous as just about anything you can put in your mouth. It is not as dangerous as most of the things that you can do. Cannabis is one of the safest commodities in our society, even in the form of high-dose edibles, which can cause a person great discomfort. It can knock them right unconscious for a few days. It's partly why it's so successful in assisting people to get through withdrawal. But still, it's not going to kill you, and it's not going to have any long-term health issues. It certainly does not require the government to step in and protect us from it anywhere more than we should be protected from tequila and commercial tobacco and many other things in our environment. You walk into a drugstore, most of the things that are on those shelves are able to kill you quite quickly if you overdose on them, or certainly mess you up in serious ways. But no, they can all kill you if you eat too much of them. And cannabis can't even do that. So it is beyond a farce that we've been waiting 2.5 years for the federal government to allow us to just continue what it is that we've been doing for all this time. It'd be great to do it better. We know we're not doing it as well as we could, and I would appreciate some government assistance in doing that. They could get our prices down, even lower than what they are. That would be great. Even on the side of edibles, I'm kind of at the mercy of a whole bunch of different donators that want to donate their stuff to me, and in many cases these are mainstream companies that do have proper dosaging on their labels and proper labeling about things. But it's not all like that. In many cases, it's just cookies and brownies and things that are being made and brought in. And we test them here, and we kind of know the potency of them, and we make sure everything is safe before it goes out. But we could do considerably better on that, and a little help from the federal government and our local government, and we would. And that would be great. We would welcome that. But that's not what's been happening at all. There's been no discussion from any level of government with us about how we can do things in a way that they would consider proper and safe. All we get is delays and excuses, and now our second intent to refuse. I'm going to read you the letter that I'm writing back in response to them. It's not really finished yet because I'm going to wait a little while before I hand it in, and just make sure that other things that I might want to say get included and all of that. But this is in defense of our application. This is the letter that I have at this point in the hands of my lawyer, and almost ready to go off to Health Canada. And I thought I would share that with you because it really kind of does nail all of these different aspects easier than with me trying to get it off the top of my head. With all due respect, we find your intent to refuse our application outrageous and unacceptable. There are some bottom lines here that you're not seeming to recognize or are not seemingly recognized by your department. First and foremost is that we have been rescuing hundreds of people from addiction over the past 6 years, and we continue to do this every day. As the science clearly shows, cannabis, primarily in the form of high-dose edibles, is very effective for many people in assisting them through withdrawal and in replacing the use of addictive and dangerous substances. This is by far the most important aspect of how we are helping people. During the past 6 years that we have been on the front lines of this epidemic of overdose and death, we have become experts on what is needed here, as we have continually worked to meet the needs of those afflicted. After our first 3.5 years at Vandu, our program has operated 8 hours a day, every day for the past 33 months here on Cordova Street, providing low barrier access to the cannabis options that are otherwise out of reach for the majority of the marginalized people that we are helping here. Denying our application is not a possibility. If the options that we are providing were to stop, it would send hundreds of the people who have come to rely on us into despair, with many going back into the poison drug supply and death. This is clearly stated in our application and backed up by the letters from Dr. M.J. Malloy and Professor Zachary Walsh, along with personal testimonies from our clients. We are keenly aware of this, and that is why we simply cannot stop. In Professor Walsh's submission, he's a recognized expert in the field, he states that our program needs to be protected, supported, and expanded with no barriers placed in front of it. It is your job to determine how to do that by way of an exemption or a special license of some sort. Our application is not regarding a proposal of something that might be effective. It is for you to find a way to approve what we have already been doing for over 6 years with great success, while proving that it is extremely effective and, most importantly, safe in rescuing vulnerable people from addiction and death. I use the word death a lot because that's what we're dealing with here. This is a life and death situation, and we're trying to get the government to support us in addressing this life and death situation. With respect to using a regulated supply, we would also appreciate this. There are a few potential remedies. First would be to provide licenses or exemptions for those who have been supplying us over the years. We have very successfully demonstrated the safety of our supply. There has not been one single problem in over 6 years, and we test everything before it goes out anyway. So by far the best way would be to license our current suppliers who have more than proven their methods and products are safe. They deserve and desire to be legal producers. But what is also important is that in many cases these people are deeply concerned for their own personal reasons and they want to help. In some cases due to having lost loved ones to this epidemic of overdose deaths. Easy for me to say. Why should they not be offered an opportunity to help if they meet responsible and reasonable standards? There is also the option of allowing current licensed producers to provide us with the regulated cannabis that they destroy due to overproducing and other reasons at no cost or low cost. The bottom line here is that wherever our supply comes from, it can't increase the cost to us and ultimately the people that we are helping. There's also the option of allowing for some members of our society to be designated growers and produce for the specific clients, but this option is much more complicated. What is most wrong about the present legalization scheme, ignoring the glaring hypocrisy when comparing to alcohol, tobacco, and other problematic substances, is the gap that we are covering. The gap that leaves out the most needy and vulnerable people who firstly are not able to afford the artificial and unjustified high prices being charged by the legal system, but mostly because there is no availability of high-dose edibles, which is crucial in assisting people through withdrawal, the number one barrier to quitting, as well as being very effective in dealing with pain, anxiety, PTSD, sleep disorders, and other drivers of addiction. As for the requirement that we only accommodate people with a medical professional's oversight and permission, we find this to be untenable and unacceptable. That barrier must be removed, as it would eliminate the vast majority that are relying on us, resulting in unnecessary suffering and death. There are millions of mainstream Canadians who are presently unable to find a doctor, let alone those we help, who are marginalized and undesirable to doctors as patients. There's also a large number of Canadians who fear doctors and the medical system, and they would not get a doctor even if they could. These people deserve protection. To remove and restrict their access to cannabis, and as stated repeatedly, especially high-dose edibles, is for many a death sentence. The more than 2.5-year delay and counting in approving our application has undoubtedly already resulted in many more deaths than would otherwise have happened had easy low-barrier access to affordable cannabis and especially high-dose edibles been granted. In a timely fashion. Now, I'll add that Health Canada said that they would respond to our application in a timely fashion 2.5 years ago when we sent it in. But they certainly have not. It's 4:19, so I got 1 minute, and you got 1 minute to get them rolled up or fill your pipe or whatever you got to do. With respect to the other three possible plans to or paths to an exemption or special license, first, to say that our program is not about public safety is simply willful blindness on your part. Our program is all about public safety. That is our whole focus. We provide an ear and a calm, safe space, including giving out socks and hand warmers when it's cold and other donations as they come in. We work in concert with other harm reduction and service providers, counseling those in need with some hope and direction. Second, what we are doing is definitely in the public's interest. The ongoing problems with homelessness, poverty, mental illness, and addiction are constantly in the news and are part of citizens' dialogue. Our efforts are front and center in many of those conversations with several media outlets along with other interested parties and harm reduction initiatives across the country awaiting your decision. It is 4:20. Maybe I'll have a puff. Come on in, Glenn.
Hey.
Glenn's here with me. We'll start the 4:20 session and I'll finish my letter.
All right, finish your letter. And I'll spark one up too while we're doing that.
Because there are three other paths to legalize or to getting an exemption, and one is that it be in the name of public safety, another be that it be in the public's interest, and the third be that it be for research. That's what I'm addressing. Thirdly, as for whether or not it has research potential, our program provides an amazing opportunity to gather important data from the front lines. For the 5.5 months that we were in the storefront before being forced to operate from an RV, we captured data by way of a series of questions updated by our clients upon each visit. The limitations of working from an RV put a hold on that, but there is great opportunity and potential to gather data that can be extremely valuable. Right now, there are university researchers who are monitoring the program to gather data regarding opiate addiction and high-dose cannabis use, etc. Are you able to hold off on denying while the research continues? Is there an exemption for research purposes that you could provide? Dr. Malloy is willing and anxious to lead that research and is also waiting for our exemption or special license to be approved. Perhaps if some of your staff came and spent some time with us, you would have a better understanding of why it is imperative that we not stop and how profoundly beneficial our program is and has been for the hundreds of poor souls that we help. Perhaps then you would understand why denying our application is not a possibility from our perspective. I'm sure you can appreciate that we have come to know and empathize with most who use our service. In many ways, they are like family to us now, and I know that we are to them. Turning our backs on them at this point would be cruel and unusual to both them and my team, not to mention unjustified. How could we possibly do that? Could you? Would you? We can't, and we won't. Just like prohibition and now gross over-regulation makes criminals out of millions of people who otherwise wouldn't be, your inaction, and ultimate refusal, if that's what you decide, will make myself and the team of angels I work with criminals, as we would find ourselves with no choice but to defy your decision and continue to save lives and better the lives of the people in need. We implore you to do the right thing, to put the lives and health of people ahead of corporate profits, to allow and support what we continue to prove every day is an extremely valuable weapon in the war against addiction, overdose, and death. We would welcome dialogue about how we can comply with reasonable regulations and requirements to best help the citizens who are afflicted and suffering. Withholding and restricting access is resulting in death and misery and has zero to do with public health and safety, as we have proven hundreds of times over. Easy, low-barrier access to cannabis, especially high-dose edibles, saves lives. So that's my rough draft at this point.
Sounds good.
Yeah, my lawyer thought it was good.
Yeah.
My previous lawyer would have probably thought it was too aggressive and not being nice enough, but I'm tired of being nice to these people. People are dying all around us all the time, and not just here, but all across Canada.
Yeah.
The government's been presented with a viable option to at least curb some of those deaths, and here we are 2.5 years later, still getting intents to refuse and delays and objections.
Yeah, and my renewals with upper management now. Just called in yesterday.
And then you're into what, your third year?
Fourth year now. I mean, almost 4 years, yeah. I didn't notice that.
Good thing you're not really too sick, eh?
So
more like
it's good.
More
it's
like
good
it.
not part of the cannabis community.
Yeah, more like it. Good thing you still have proper access to cannabis while they wait on your license to be able to help yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm pissed at these people. You know, I mean, this has been going on for way too long. It isn't even Benoit Seguin anymore. He's left the department. He's back in as a university professor teaching sports business management or something like that.
Really?
That's who he was. Some shill that they put into the job there because he promised them that there's no way he would allow special licenses and exemptions to go to groups that were going to sell less than what the government is selling it for. Maintaining the cartel's hold on those artificially high prices and continuing this protection racket that they're running with our tax dollars to criminalize good people who should be part of the industry and were for so long.
Yeah.
Pisses me off. We're going to have 420 coming up.
Yeah.
Woo!
I got to say, I noticed in your letter you said perhaps twice. One paragraph was perhaps something, and then the second was perhaps then.
Okay.
Right? I would just go with then. You would be able
I saw I had 2 others in a row there as well.
Did you? Yeah. But you sent a rough copy, right?
Yeah, it's a rough copy.
Friends had to point this out, so you
I actually did a little edit right when I was reading it.
Oh, were you?
And I'm going to read it many more times, and I'm going to get feedback from other people around me, and we're going to make it as powerful as we can, and
Your
hopefully,
pretty powerful.
Well, the idea is that they need to say yes to us, and they need to do it fast. And saying no to us is not a possibility.
They're declared a health emergency, so why aren't we able to help out with a health emergency?
But, it's a good thing is it? But I mean, it's a good thing this public health emergency has been lasting all this time, or maybe they would have never given us approval for this.
Yeah.
No, it's not a good thing at all that it's lasted such a long time. It would have been probably on the back burner by now if they had allowed for easy access to cannabis, especially high-dose edibles. In communities all across Canada, there needs to be low-barrier access community cannabis stores where medical people and people trying to escape addiction can walk in and get discreet, low barrier access to cannabis. And I say discreet because there's a whole group of people that are addicted to the opiates that are hiding it. They're secret addicts because they're ashamed of it, because numerous different reasons why they don't want anybody to know that that's what's going on with them. And they're not going to join a program where they can get it for free and identify themselves in any way, shape, or form. They need to be able to come in discreetly, get dispensed cannabis high-dose edibles with some good information about how to use them in a proper way, because if you eat too much, then it's not comfortable. People don't want to do it again. If you use the right amount, if you start low, go slow, you can find that right amount that allows you to feel okay as you get off of those other drugs and then onto a much better life. So this needs to be throughout Canada, everywhere, and if it was, we would have put a big dent already in the amount of people that are suffering with addiction.
Mm-hmm. Would have had a big difference, and the government would have made enough money, as much money on putting people in treatment centers too, though, right?
I don't know what the government's agenda is not really about making money, because it's all just tax dollars anyway. Mm-hmm. The money that they bring in, they're happy to have. They usually get to spend that in ways that will help them get reelected.
Yep.
But really, they're working on behalf of other groups that don't want cannabis to compete with in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And this whole legalization scheme seems to be about discrediting cannabis, marginalizing it, keeping the stigmatization going, and allowing these other groups and companies to continue to thrive. Where they wouldn't really if cannabis was properly available.
Now, in Ontario, is it different that you can't walk into a cannabis store without a prescription? Because there's one of those articles I sent you today was an Ontario store is being charged because
that was
they
2018.
Huh?
They were charged in 2018.
They were charged in 2018.
The reason that story is back in the news is because Vance, the fellow who was charged in that whole thing, they dropped all the charges.
Oh, okay. So that's why.
That was in Essex, Ontario.
Yeah.
So that's what's happened there.
So they dropped all the charges. So that gives hope to your case and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we ever get into court, then we should be fine.
Yeah.
But we're not scheduled for court until October 3rd.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's just going to be a voir dire, however you say it.
Voir, whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not French enough, Us Swedes, we don't handle the French very well. I can do the French accent, but I can't really say the words too well.
Yeah.
But, so, that's going to be the federal crown on behalf of King Charles, bringing forth their evidence as to why I should be penalized and stop doing what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're going to get past that first stage. And I think that's unfortunate almost. I mean, I want to take them to court.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that's how this is that the judge is not going to say, well, Crown, you don't have enough, and we're not going to let you proceed at the taxpayer's expense to try to punish Mr. Magnuson. No longer my team. The other two co-accused have decided to take plea deals.
They did?
Yeah.
What? Really?
Yeah. George and Andrew are taking a plea, which their lawyer has told them they will get a complete discharge.
A complete discharge. So
a complete discharge.
No criminal record.
No criminal record.
So that's like 6 months probation and then the conditional
hard
discharge.
Hard to say what the conditions are.
Yeah.
If the conditions are that on George that he can't do this anymore, then he'll be breaking those right away.
Yeah.
I've asked him about that, and he said, "Well, I guess I'll just be breaking my conditions then."
Oh wow! Wow.
Because this is bullshit.
Yes.
There deserves to be no penalties imposed on anybody.
Nope.
They should be giving out some sort of accommodation. Not accommodation. Accommodation. Is accommodation and accommodation the same thing?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But
they don't need a place to live.
But no, it's two separate words. Accommodation. And then accommodation is one word of somewhere where you.
I don't necessarily believe you, but I'll take it because I don't have any other proof.
Yes.
We could go into Google.
Yeah, I do believe it's accommodation.
I don't.
Yes.
I think accommodation is all one word, and I think. Okay, the other one maybe.
Right, if you receive accommodation, right?
A commendation.
Yeah.
Commendation.
Yeah, whatever. After
Stupid
420,
stoners.
smoked a couple of joints, and here we go.
Here we are.
Comedies, and maybe you guys can answer for us.
Commendation.
Somebody ask Google out there.
George
or Siri
deserves
for
a
us.
commendation. With a break between and commendation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or, yeah.
I can always rely on you. I don't know why I question you at all.
Well,
I always have to question everything. That's just who I am.
That's good, right?
It's part of how I do things, you know.
Not
Not everybody's right
Douglas.
all the time.
Yeah. Douglas says, have a good night. Enjoy the beautiful weather.
Well, you too, Douglas.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate you. I guess we're going to see you folks on 420.
Yes.
Boy, that's going to be exciting.
It's going to be nice. Get them out
The
of the
booths
house.
are starting to go.
Yep.
There's still some good ones left. They're all good.
Yeah.
They're all reasonably priced, cheaper than any 420 we've ever done. And we're trying to have a great event here, and we just need a little bit of support. And we've got it. There are sponsors coming on board, but there's room for more.
Yeah.
We have some signed capabilities on the stage that haven't been taken yet, so
Yeah.
there's still some sponsorship spots available. There's still, when I say good booths, like they're all good booths, of course, but some of those booths are situated in a corner
Yeah.
where you would have three sides exposed to people going around. So that's maybe a better booth.
Yeah.
They're also in the path areas where the paths diverge into like four different directions. So there's a number of people coming and going through that spot all the
And
time.
there's going to be a lot of people.
But they're all walking back and forth through all these booths, and then in the 4 or 5 different quadrants that there are around where the main stage is, that they're all separated by these paths. Those quadrants are also going to be little villages inside there with people, with their booths, and they're all going to be very cool as well. I can't wait. I'm so
It's going to be
excited.
nice. I just hope the weather works out for us, too.
Yeah, that's the only variable we can't control.
Yep.
We're going to have the world's biggest joint.
I think we're going to have Rosie.
can't imagine.
We'll have to have Rosie there because she's been bringing sunshine.
Oh,
to the-
Rosie's not. She's there with bells on.
I know. I was
She's
just saying, because of the sunshine, the last 2 events have brought sunshine, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
she's been amazing. Somehow she put on one in the middle of February for Can of Love.
Yeah.
And then she put on St. Fatty's Day and sunny weather,
Yeah,
warm
somebody
this last
blocked
time.
us from the shady side and put us on the sunny side.
Yeah, that was amazing too.
I guess, right?
Well, we do feel very emboldened because we think we have the universe and all the powers of good working in
Towards us,
concert
yeah.
with us, and we see this all the time. Those of us that are in this industry, it's kind of amazing, the little minor miracles all the time that seem to happen. Having said all that, now it's going to rain on 420.
No, hey, no, we don't know that.
No.
We don't know that.
420 is almost always historically been a decent day, and I'm sure it will be again, but that's the only variable we can't control. What we can control is having a great day for everybody, having the world's biggest joint rolled on site during the day, and then lit on fire, and then shared with the entire crowd.
Yep.
That's going to be
We're definitely going to smoke out the park.
Yeah. I had so at St. Fatty's Day.
Yeah.
That was a great day.
That was great.
One of the great things about
Great
that
day,
day.
yeah.
That's more Scottish than Irish. I'm a Scotland talking about
Okay,
Ireland.
all right.
Oh, the wee people,
The only thing
So
I
there was
know.
lots of wee people there, and some of the wee people that were there had uniforms on.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
those
those
policemen.
boys in the blue
The
uniforms.
boys and girls in blue. They were there actually in force, and they were trying to be forceful.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I said to the group of them that were standing there was, I can't be talking. I mean, it's just the event.
Yeah.
But, so I do this sometimes. I have no idea why, other than I think it must be funny. I'm
cannabis.
usually trying some lame thing to get people to laugh, but mostly it's just about me laughing myself because it makes me laugh. And so somehow, regularly, I break into this Irish accent when I'm talking to people. I mean, I'll go to a store and I'll get the cash register and I'll say something. And it's got the Irish and the cashier thinks I'm a little old Irishman standing there,
There
you
you
know.
go, yeah.
So then if I start talking without the Irish accent, it's kind of like, what? But anyway, I did this the other day. I was at the beach at White Rock with my mom, and a guy was there with his beautiful little family, a wonderful dog, little kids. They just had a nice walk on the beach. And so he comes up and he's putting his stuff away. I said, how did I still walk on the beach there, did you? And he talks back to me with the same Irish accent.
Oh, caught you, eh?
I've had that before too.
Oh, wow.
So, anyway, back to the little boys in blue
Yeah.
and girls in blue. They should have been in green, shouldn't
The
they?
people in blue.
The people in blue.
Let's go with the people.
They should have been in green.
Could
We were all
Could have been
in
his
green.
and hers.
I said to them right away, I said, you guys have better things to do than this, don't you? Because there's quite a group of them there, and they look pretty serious. And a couple of them right away, the female in particular, yeah, we really shouldn't be here, you know? One guy's like, I'd really rather be home with my kids right now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I said, well, you shouldn't be here because there's nothing going on here. And one of them pipes up and says, well, you know, there's fentanyl that's laced in with the weed that's being sold here. And I said, oh my God, give me a break. That's not happening. Oh, that's happening, he says.
Oh, yeah, right.
I said, sir, there's only been a couple of reports of that over the last few years of this fentanyl overdose crisis, and they were both debunked. I mean, the one was because a police officer had both fentanyl and weed in the back trunk of his car, and it got cross-contaminated. You know, there's been no really legitimate cases that have been on record of somebody lacing their weed with fentanyl. Why the hell would nobody would do that?
And if you did, it would burn black. And we all know as cannabis smokers, if it's burning black, you don't fucking smoke it because it's got fertilizers and shit in it,
Nobody's
right?
gonna do that.
It would be hard to light it up.
That would be like the stupidest person ever, and most stoners aren't that stupid.
No,
They're just stoned sometimes,
No.
and they're not going to do
no
that.
way, yeah.
What a ridiculous thing to say. But there, he's got to justify why they're there, right? They, you know, so you know, so you can't be doing what you're doing here. He says to me, you know, you're going to have to pack it up. And I said, oh no, we're not. That's not going to happen. He said, well, we're here to stop you. I said, well, you give your best, man. Do whatever you think you have to do here, but. We're going to have our event. I said, why would you stop this one? We've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
I said, we're going to have one coming up a month from now. You're going to try to stop that one too? You know, we got hundreds of vendors here and thousands of people. You're going to try to stop that one too? So anyway, I'm not backing down.
No.
And Rosie's there and she's not backing down. She's got lots to say too. She's an ex hard drug addict that kicked with cannabis, and she's been doing wonderful work on a cannabis substitution program out in Surrey there. And so her and I are both, you know, whap with these guys. And, well, okay, well, we're going to have to huddle over here and talk about it. So they go over there and they huddle up. And then at some point they're back and I go over there and, you know, they say, well, you know, we're in a tough place here. You know, so this isn't us. And then the guy reiterates that he'd much rather be home with his kids. And I said, I'd like to have you there too, sir. I mean, why do you think you have to do something about this? He said, well, it's the higher ups that... you know, are telling us we have to do this. I said, well, that's just dumb. That the VPD brass would think that it's worth our police resources to try to stop a peaceful cannabis event that provides access for options for these people. Well, if these people are dying on the streets 2 blocks away from here. So he says, oh, no, it's not the VPD brass.
No.
I said, oh, yeah, well, where's your instructions coming from? He said, it's coming from Ottawa.
Well,
really?
Ottawa made the law, right?
So Ottawa...
I think that's because Ottawa made the laws.
Well,
they created the Cannabis Act, right?
They're certainly behind all of this.
That's what he's saying.
No, that's not what he's saying.
No, come on.
He's saying
somebody called and sent to Vancouver.
There's 2 sergeants there. He's one of them, and he's telling me that his instructions are coming from Ottawa to stop us from what we're doing there. He didn't mean because there's a Cannabis Act. He meant that's what they got on the phone.
Act that if somebody is selling, that they have to follow that. This is what they have to do. Go and arrest them.
Well, they're supposed to stop that,
right? So wouldn't that be Ottawa saying that you have to do this, right?
I mean, that's not what he meant.
Okay,
I was there, and that's not what he meant.
All right.
And because I right away said, seriously, this is are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, we're in a tough situation here. We're supposed to do something about this. And he says, so how about a compromise? I said, well, I guess that would depend on what the compromise is, you know? And he says, you can have your tables and booths, but you can't have more than 30 grams of weed on the table at any given time. I said, no, that's not going to fly. I mean, there's tables over there that have like 30 jars full of weed on them, and what are they going to put 1 gram of each one there? And what, you're okay with letting all that happen as long as they're like doing it under the table? I mean, this is bullshit, man. I said, I'll go tell them that's what you said. But I'm not telling them to do that, and I don't think they're going to do that. And I said, how about I'll give you a compromise. I said, I guarantee you we won't sell to any minors. Because nobody there wants the trouble that would cause. And I said, by minor, I'm talking about somebody who's obviously a kid. Not by age, because there's lots of 16, 17-year-olds that are, you know, of adult mind, and they're not kids. And I think that we are okay to help those people get access, rather than send them to some creep in a basement suite or who knows where or what into the depths of fucking prohibition and all the problems that causes. The Canadian Senate said very clearly by 2002 that 16 should be the age of retail access.
Yeah.
And I'm not completely sure I agree with all that, because some 16-year-olds are still childs in their minds.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it's up to the discretion of a responsible adult to recognize when that's what you're dealing with.
It's just like here in British Columbia, there's no law of when you can leave your child alone home.
Right.
In your home.
Right.
It's by maturity.
By maturity.
Right? So the parent is the one who calls the maturity. If their child is mature enough to stay there by themselves,
Yeah.
the door's locked, then they'll let them do it. There is no law that
I'm of the
says that
same
you have
mind
to
with
give-
this.
Yes. So
That if you're somebody who's providing cannabis, you have a responsibility to be aware of who you're dealing with. And if
Yeah.
you're dealing with a minor who's like, hey, mister, can I get some weed? You know,
forgot to do that with the
you
Irish
go,
accent.
you go, no, you can't. Not from me, and you shouldn't go and get it from anybody else. You need to get it from your big brother, or you get an uncle, or your dad or mom. And if they're okay with it, then come back and see me with them,
Yeah.
and we can talk.
Yeah.
But it is no other adult's right to be able to deal with a youngster, you know, in any fashion like that, to supply stuff like that. Unless you're a family member, you have no business. And maybe even extended uncles that really know. I mean, if you got a family friend and that youngster feels safe to come to you and say, you know, would you smoke a joint with me because all my friends are and I'm going to, and I really don't want to get it where they're getting it because I've heard, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not up to a random stranger, adult, to be able to provide anything like that, probably even a chocolate bar in my opinion, to a minor.
Yeah.
So I said, I guarantee you we're not going to be dispensing anything to any minors here. And I'll guarantee you that there's going to be at least a dozen people, and way more than that, that are going to show up here during the course of the day, and they're going to get something from here that's going to prevent them from getting something elsewhere that they would have maybe killed themselves with.
Yeah.
And I'll also guarantee you that there's nobody that's going to get anything from here today that's going to die of a fentanyl overdose from what they got.
Yeah.
And I also told them we'd leave it cleaner than we found it.
Yeah.
So that was my compromise, that we're going to have a safe event, we're going to leave it cleaner than we find it, and you know, we're not going to sell to any minors. So anyway, they said, well, no, that's not good enough. We're going to have to enforce the, you know, the 30 grams only. So, you know, we're telling you this now,
Yeah.
and we're going to be sending in undercovers during the day, and, you know, we'll see what they find. I said, all right, well, you do whatever you have to do, and we'll do whatever we have to do. But bear in mind, we have a lot of video cameras here, and if you guys are going to start interfering with our event, well, I think the media would be pretty interested in that type of a video. Like I say, when 2 blocks away, there's real work that you guys could be doing.
Yeah.
And not just in trying to prevent the sale. I mean, I really don't like that. You know, I mean, I've been against the enforced prohibition of these things for a long time. But they do have a real problem when they're allowing the trading of this stuff right in the open, you know, from tents, but it's right there. You can drive by, you can see people handing money, getting powder.
Yeah.
It's really easy to do on Hastings Street. It's really easy to see. If there were undercovers walking up Hastings Street, they could be arresting people, you know, every minute.
But they probably just have 2.5 grams on the table.
Hard to say. That's as of this last February 1st.
Right.
So maybe they are complying with that, you know?
See, I can't
But
think
they,
of cannabis.
you know, yeah.
All right.
And like I say, I have real mixed emotions about enforcing those types of prohibitions. And
Yeah.
those things exist because of government policy. The government policy needs to change, and then those things would go away. But with government policy the way it is, there is going to be some person's you know, child out there getting hard drugs. There's going to be some other person's child out there selling them hard drugs. And I don't mean children and minors in that respect. I mean that we're all children of somebody, and they're all our sons and daughters that are involved in all of this. These poor souls out here are the sons and daughters of somebody.
Yeah.
And so, but what is going on in Vancouver is intolerable, to say the least. It's a situation that's evolved not just here, but it's in many other big cities where there's tents set up along the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And in the harshness of winter, every single year we get people dying in burning tents. And we just had it again a few days ago right here, right like a quarter of a block away, just across the street. We were all, I wasn't, I was in here, but the staff in the RV was parked on the corner. All of a sudden there was loud explosions.
Yeah.
Casey came running in here. She said there's bombs going off on Hastings Street. There's fires going on. She was a little bit over dramatic. I think she thought the war had started.
Yeah.
But what it was is one tent in particular, some speculation that maybe there was some hard drugs being manufactured in that tent.
Oh,
even.
I heard there was propane tanks.
There was 4 to 6, and they actually said 7 on the news, propane tanks.
Yeah, one was a 100-pounder.
Yeah, and we watched the firemen, those amazing, brave human beings, pull those propane tanks out of that tent and put them on the street.
Because they know they're not going to explode.
Well, maybe they know that. I don't know.
I've seen it on Mythbusters.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they did the test with the propane tank. The only thing that really set off the propane tank was when they shot it with an incendiary bullet.
I see.
One that had a little bit of a glow on it. Once it went into the tank, it exploded. But those tanks are supposed to keep it from having that explosion.
Well, that's very good to know.
I guess after a long time, maybe it was an intense fire in a warehouse, maybe that might be a different
Eventually
situation.
they will go.
Yes.
Well, and
Right.
in our RV, when it went up in flames, there was a couple of explosions in there, and those were those small,
The little ones.
almost empty little ones.
Yeah.
And that may have been what was going on there too, because there was a bunch of those ones in that tent as well.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear what you're saying there, because I was thinking, man, those firemen, they are crazy brave, man.
Yeah.
And they are anyway.
Yeah, they are.
They are anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, they went in and hauled those tanks out of there and put them in the middle of the road where there was, they'd gotten barricades up and nobody there. But there was a woman that was found dead in the one tent.
That was the fire that happened a few days before, I think.
No, I've got the news.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Dan sent me the news from this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a woman that was dead inside there.
Oh, I thought they found one a couple of days
Well,
ago
they
or
did
something.
that too.
Yeah.
They did that
Okay.
too. That's why I say this happens every year.
Yeah.
So
But
now you would think
the Imperial Theater one is what I thought was the one you were just talking about that just happened.
it just happened 2
And they
days
found
ago.
a body
and
there.
they found a body there. That's
Oh.
what it says in the news. I'm not going to bother bringing up the
no.
report. This is a cannabis show after all.
Yeah.
Well, THC, Truth,
Yeah.
Hope, and Change.
Yeah.
The truth is, if we're going to have some hope in this situation, we've got to do something about these poor people that are trying to survive in tents and in some cases killing themselves in the process, and other people with them. I mean, that could have easily been in a residential building. There could have been. It could have caught. Thank goodness that there's a fire hall just a half a block away, and they're on it with this type of stuff quick. But it really could have been way worse than it was.
And now there's going to be more tents because the warm weather's coming back.
More tents, but less propane.
Yeah, less propane, yes. Yeah.
Unless you're creating drugs in there.
Yeah, unless you're cooking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I thought the 100-pounder guy was maybe filling up the 20-pounders.
Could be.
They said there were a bunch of 25-pounders propane tanks.
There was.
25s.
There
They come
was.
in 20s.
Yeah, I got a bunch right here.
Yeah, I think they're just 20 pounds, so not 25.
I think they're 20 pounds.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure I worked
Cost
for
me $30 to get
I
them
filled them. I filled them, so I had a propane license.
You pay more attention than I do.
They're 20-pounders, yeah.
I'm always thinking about other stuff. I'm not
I'm
reading
just
my
saying, the
propane
media
down.
doesn't even know what they're talking about saying 25-pounders.
What am I smoking, by the way?
You're smoking some hash plant.
Hash plant?
Yeah, it's actually Pacific Northwest 9, but it's basically a hash plant. So, yeah, not bad, eh?
That's very good.
I like it.
The
yeah.
nugs were beautiful and crystally.
Oh,
but
yeah.
they weren't like the hash plant that I first encountered
No, I think that
about
strain
18
is
years
gone.
ago
Yes, yeah.
at the herb school over there. I'm pretty sure his name was Al. He was a short little dude that was a grower from Alabama.
Yeah.
And he also drove taxi in Alabama. And there was another
wow, eh?
another taxi company had moved in.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's mafia down there.
Oh, really, eh?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, it was hardcore fighting over turf and the rest of it. That the cab drivers were carrying guns with them.
Wow.
And then I don't know if he got busted. I don't remember exactly what the details were, but he had to get the hell out of Dodge or Alabama. Was Dodge in Alabama?
No. I think Dodge is in Texas or something.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Well, he was dodging something from Alabama, and he had to get the hell out of there. So he had come up through the Underground Railroad that existed that brought up smuggled people from the U.S. to Canada for a number of different reasons. And he took that all the way to Windsor. And then in Windsor, there's the border right there. There's the bridge and the border. Apparently, he ordered himself a limousine, bought himself a new suit of clothes, and got in the limo, and he was just waved on through.
He would have been crossing Ambassador Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ambassador Bridge
Yeah.
is the one.
You'd almost throw a rock over there.
Right. Well, no, that's a pretty good toss.
It is a pretty good toss. But you can certainly see Windsor from
Oh yeah, what do you mean Detroit?
or Detroit.
It's Detroit and Windsor. Yes.
And Windsor's on the Canadian side.
Yes,
That's
Detroit's
right.
on the other side.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's not.
Getting old,
I think
losing
it's
it.
the Ambassador Bridge or something like that. Yeah.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
It was in Windsor when I was on the Freedom Tour that I was going to all these different police stations on behalf of LEAP, and with my LEAP brochures. I mean, by the time I got to Windsor, man, I'd been doing this. I think that was probably the third year,
That's a
maybe the
long
fourth
time.
year. I'd been to so many police stations. I had talked to so many policemen, and I always wanted to, because the first year that I did it, I think I looked like a stoner. I had a mullet.
You mean you don't look like a stoner now?
Well, I mean, probably you can tell if you look me in the eye, but I had a mullet going on, and after that first year of going across Canada for 5.5 months and going to all these police stations and talking to all these cops, and not getting very much respect in the process, especially in the mayor's offices. When I saw a video of myself presenting at an SSU forum that we had going on here, and they had video cameras that showed the presentation, and there was one in behind me as I stood at the pulpit there, whatever it is. It's probably not a pulpit.
Pulpit.
But oh my God, I looked terrible with that mullet. Just it looked terrible. Like you couldn't really see it from the front too much, but I mean, turn my head a little bit, and so I went, oh man, no wonder I'm not getting any respect from these people.
Yeah.
So we had a cut the mullet event. It's on YouTube. The what was it? The cutting of a mullet, something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. We had great big huge golden scissors that Kara, I mean, she rest in peace. Oh, too young. That she gave more of a donation than anybody else to the upcoming Freedom Tour.
Yeah.
And so she had the pleasure of cutting that off of my head. They put elastic band on it, they put it into quite the ponytail, and then she just snipped it right there.
Oh, wow.
With the elastic band still holding the whole bulk of the hair in place.
Wow.
It looked exactly like a rat.
Oh, really?
Put it on a table.
You're scary somebody with it, eh?
I still got it somewhere in storage. It's going to scare the hell out of somebody if they ever go through that.
Halloween decoration.
But after that, I started going across Canada to these police stations like the following. I did 3 years in a row, 5.5 months every year, going to every town that I could find and visiting the police stations in every town. And I had my spiel and I had my LEAP handouts, but I would put on my good black dress shoes and my dress pants. I had a black shirt that had the LEAP crest on it, the official crest. LEAP primarily, at the time, was Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, a wonderful group of almost all retired law enforcement people from the different branches of law enforcement that didn't like the war on drugs, that understood, and they really understood the dynamics of how prohibition doesn't work. It makes things worse. It guarantees an underground marketplace. It lures young people and rebellious people into doing these jobs and suffering the fates that happens when you're doing that in many different ways, and all the bad things about prohibition. They were up to speed on all of that. A great group. And so I was a lay civilian member. I was not an ex-law enforcement. I never had anything to do with law enforcement. The closest I ever got to law enforcement was being arrested. And the second closest I ever got to law enforcement was when my dad kind of wanted to be a cop. But he was a gimpy little guy that was too short back at the time. They wouldn't accept you if you were under certain heights and stuff. And so he didn't get, but he had respect for the law. He wanted to. He was a Christian fellow. And he tried to impress that upon me as well. I wanted to have respect for police and then found out that, well, a cop's just doing his job. And as much as I respect the reasons they got into it, the fact that they're doing that job the way that they're doing it, in many cases, they don't get my respect. There are good cops out there that do a good job. But primarily there's a lot of peer pressure on them in those police organizations to punish the bad guys before the courts get to them. So they get to be judge and jury in many cases about how they treat you when they're arresting you. And if they just think you're a disobedient lawbreaker, they're just,
slap you around.
And I'll tell you, the cannabis community got a lot of that. They did not like the defiance of people in the cannabis community. They did not like the long hair. They didn't like lots of it. And they treated us very badly in many cases. So there I am, I find myself going to police stations trying to look like a cop to try to convince them of why they should join this group LEAP and not do what they're doing.
And today it would be a total different reception. People would be more open to it now.
Probably they would, yeah. Although LEAP went away, they changed their name, they changed their focus, and the pioneers, the founders, and all the good members, they quit in disgust as LEAP stopped being law enforcement against prohibition, and they became law enforcement action partnership. Whatever that means. It's certainly not anywhere near as clear as against prohibition.
Yeah.
And they've entered into partnerships with the communities with respect to drug policy, with respect to trying to de-racialize the way that policing is done and other things like that. And with respect to drug policy, they're on board with this fake and really damaging legalization that's not just being put in place here in Canada, but in many states in the United States and other places around the world. They are trying to follow this model of having high fees, harsh restrictions and regulations, tightly controlled, artificially high prices for the cannabis, methods of growing that compromise the medical value of the cannabis, while at the same time continuing to have prohibition against anybody not part of that regime, and harsher penalties and more tax dollars wasted on enforcement, more ruined lives, more people hiding and doing all the things that you have to do. All the pitfalls of prohibition are still well in place. All those people still making tax dollars off of enforcing that stuff, and other dollars as well. And so this is the model that we're being forced into here in Canada and across the nation and across the world, of big business taking over cannabis, maintaining restrictions and even prohibitions that continue the war against cannabis and cannabis users. So that's what's going on. Now I forgot why I was telling you that.
Well, you're talking about the reception that you're getting and stuff like that. But it reminds me of a story I just saw in the news about sports and Pride Days and hockey.
Right.
The San Jose Sharks just did something, and one of the goalie, he didn't wear the special jersey.
Well, he refused to because it didn't represent his values.
But what they said was 10 years ago, if you had a hockey stick that had Pride colors on it.
No, just a little tiny bit of Pride tape.
Yeah,
tiny
tape
said.
on it, would have been a front page story.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas nowadays,
it's just one guy.
It's one
that
guy.
doesn't go along with it.
Yeah, so it's sort of correlation to you, because 10 years ago, when you were doing LEAP, helping out with LEAP, you wouldn't get the reception that you get today.
So I think so.
Things have definitely changed.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's more of an acceptance and probably more cops that are able to smoke weed.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Because unless you're
but for them, it's still a paycheck for them.
Yeah.
That's the thing with this apparatus of prohibition. Those people that enforce it, they are making money.
Yeah.
So the cops are no different. I mean, individual cops, you would hope, have a more liberal attitude towards all things cannabis. But and there it would be the cops that really think that and I've met them, that think that aren't in favor of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we're just not following the rules.
Because their rule is to follow.
You still got to follow the rules.
If you're breaking the law, then you're not following the rules.
Yeah, they don't like rule breakers and law breakers.
Yeah.
But that's less of the cops, I think. There's more cops now that
understand.
Yeah, and I continue to talk to cops as much as I can.
Yeah.
And these ones at St. Fatty's Day, there was a couple there, 3 of the 6 that I talked to, that were, maybe it was good cop, bad cop. Maybe they do that on purpose. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive.
Yeah.
But, the one guy, he raised his sunglasses. He looked me right in the eye. He said, I'm a human being too,
Yeah.
And I think they were, in those, at least 3 of those cases. The guy with there's fentanyl laced weed going on here, I don't think he was much of a human being.
When they were having their little huddle, did they make a phone call to see if
they
could give you? They did.
Oh, yeah, they were on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we had that sort of same situation at Sunset Beach one time. We were dealing with the Rangers, right? And they had to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And then the guy was a really nice
cops
cop.
the
bicycle cop, remember?
Yeah, the cops were there too.
Yeah, the bicycle cop, right? And then he come back. He said, okay, we've worked things out. He had to make a call upstairs. And yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was quite a day too.
Yeah.
That was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That was one of our attempts at either 420 or Cannabis Day.
Yeah.
We had already set 3/4 of the stage up. And then they decided we can't have that.
But we did it.
And it was Adeline.
Yeah.
It was Adeline who decided that she was going to attach herself as best as she could to the handrail on the stairs. And she's there hanging on, and she's looking at the cop, and she says, "You're going to have to remove me before you can remove this stage.
Yeah.
And that ain't going to be pretty. And you don't want that. I don't want that. Nobody wants that."
Yeah.
And he looked at her. He just shook his head. And he walked away.
Yeah. It was him and a lady cop there on their bikes, and they turned out to be humans.
They were all right.
They were humans, right? They were humans.
If you know how to talk to them, and that's what I kind of got good at, was figuring out how to talk to them.
Talk to them, right?
You know, what it is that they
de-escalate them. Right? Because they're all, oh, you're freaking out, and then you got to bring them down, right?
Well, they got me. If they Google me, or not Google, on their machines, if they look me up, apparently I'm anti-police.
Of course.
And I was mad about that, you know, and I thought, well, where the heck would they get that from, you know? And well, I remember where they get that from now. Yeah, I remembered. So they, not them, but the CSU busted or raided Dana Larson's shop on Thurlow, and also the Indigenous dispensary on Broadway, on way down West Broadway, within 2 days of each other. One day they raid one, the next day they raid the other. So we were there at those places during those raids, you know, with our signs and yelling and screaming. And there was VPD there.
Yeah.
So the VPD were standing there in the door, you know, and then we're out there going, "Shame on you, you know, what are you doing here, you know, da, da, da." Well, the next move for us was to go to the police station.
Yeah.
So I did spend a whole afternoon at the VPD station there,
so that's why you
yelling and screaming at these people about how horrible they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where that came from.
Yeah,
they kind of went, all right, who is this guy?
What's his name?
Anti-police. Yeah, we're checking that one off. I was pretty anti-police that day. I had some of those officers come and say, "Hey, man, come on, I wasn't there. It wasn't me." Yeah. I said, "Oh, it's everybody in that uniform. You're tainted by the uniform, you know."
Yeah.
And then I found out later from another cop, I was discussing this with her. Maybe it was at the end of that day. I don't think so. I think it was another day where I found out that, or what they said is that we were not there to support the CSU in raiding that place. We were there to protect the employees that were there and make sure that they were treated fairly.
By the CSU?
By the CSU.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, maybe. You know, I try to always assume the best. I try to assume people aren't lying to me, which might make me a little naive sometimes. But anyway, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Hey, we got a situation going on over at that dispensary. You know, those provincial cops are in our jurisdiction, and they're pulling off one of their raids. You think we should maybe send a few boys over there just to make sure that they don't get out of control and cause us a whole bunch of trouble? Maybe that's what happened. Maybe. I don't know.
Didn't they say the same thing for when they went to Doug and Michelle's? They
were there to keep Michelle safe?
The RCMP was saying we're here to keep the CSU or something. Or maybe the CSU safe. Yeah.
You know, that's probably what they came up with.
Yeah.
They probably came up with that. Well, you know, this provincial piece of shit unit that runs around restricting people's access and trying to deny people's access, they're not going to make us look good. But, you know, we need to be there. And so we're just going to say that we're there to protect the citizens from the CSU. They probably came up with that. That makes a lot more sense to me than the other.
Yeah.
But and it's just their go-to for what to do when the citizens aren't happy about what's going on there. And, of course, who's going to be happy about that except maybe the legal cannabis retailers who are happy to see the other ones get shut down, which is a tragedy that they managed to split people apart like that.
That's what they do, divide and conquer.
So much of this has been exactly that strategy.
Yeah. Well, there's an opposite to everything, so they just they push it so that there is an opposite, right? So, but
this legalization scheme of theirs was pretty brilliant. You know, I used to say that the whole prohibition scheme was pretty brilliant too.
Well, even the legalization made it so that the people who couldn't buy or weren't buying wanted to try cannabis now could.
Yeah.
So that's the opposite of the people who were already existing, right?
Yeah,
So
they brought in a whole new group of people,
Yeah.
but now they're willing to try it because they can buy it from a government store.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the history. They don't understand nothing about nothing.
They only understand that they don't have to be worried about buying pot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No, you're 100%.
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
They obviously got some of their better minds together. Maybe they got pharmaceutical enhanced brains. I don't know. But they sat around and they thought, geez, these guys are really winning what they're trying to win.
Yeah.
We were gaining public opinion on our side in huge numbers. The media was starting to write stories, in favor of what was going on and against prohibition. We had Leap. We had gained so much momentum.
Yeah.
By the time we had that one at the art gallery where we had 3.5 years ago or 4 years ago, we had Justin Trudeau's picture on the zigzag papers.
Yeah.
And we all got up there and said, hey, vote for this
I
guy.
have a picture of that. Yeah.
Everybody but Freddie Pritchard
Yeah.
pretty much got up and said, hey, vote for this guy. And it may have been better than the alternatives anyway. In fairness, there really wasn't much else to vote for. Not the Conservatives, and the NDP weren't going to get in. Maybe you could have gone with John West's idea of just nobody voting at all.
Yeah, but that
that's
doesn't happen because Ontario controls it all anyway.
Yeah,
So
and it's all big money is going to
if we
coerce.
didn't, Ontario would still call a winner, right?
That's right. It's not about us here in the West,
no.
And you couldn't convince enough people to vote none of the above at any point. There's big dollars involved.
Yeah.
There's unions. There's people with vested interests that are going to be
It's a good
spoken
thought,
to.
but it ain't
It's
gonna
an
happen.
interesting thought. It would take such an incredible set of circumstances for the populace en masse to decide to vote none of the above. That maybe we got a little closer there with the pandemic and people realizing how much the governments are corrupt and how that was a big exercise of control. Maybe, but not a viable. And if you go about the campaign of trying to convince people to vote none of the above, and you get a whole bunch of people to do that, well, you're just handing the election to those people that do vote.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get enough that they're going to go through this mechanism of
And
now,
the winners are the
picking
winners.
people at random to be ministers, and all the other parties are not involved. John West's idea is not something that I can support.
Yeah.
So Justin was the thing. I talked to him in person in the lead up to the election, briefly, but enough that he told me, he looked me straight in the eye, shook my hand, said that he would respect individual sovereignty, and he knew damn well what I meant about that.
Yeah.
And he certainly has done nothing of the sort. The things that he was saying, I went and watched him at the rally in Kelowna, for example, where he talked about how the medical people were going to be fully taken care of by legalization. There'd be no more concerns about them, for them. Oh, really? And now there's no high-dose edibles? Oh, really? And the price is still up there where it is during Prohibition, which sick people can't afford unless they're independently wealthy, which most of them aren't. Nature of being sick in most cases. So the other thing he said was that there'd be no more underground marketplace for cannabis because everybody would want to go to the government stores because the government stores were going to have great cannabis at way better prices than what you could find anywhere else. And of course, it was going to be safe cannabis, like as if there was ever a problem. He didn't say much about the safety of cannabis back at the time.
Yeah.
But, he said those things and he was full of shit.
Yeah.
And he knew he was lying through his teeth because Freddie Pritchard was pointing it out, saying, look at how it actually reads on the website there that they got there. They're going to be protecting the kids. They're going to be severely restricting access. And we all thought, wow, they just wrote that there because, they kind of had to, and that's not going to be the way it plays out at all,
It did.
And that was our big argument. Well, it did, yeah, for sure. Now, Freddie said that they were quickly going to wipe out all illegal access points for cannabis. And my argument was, well, that's going to be more difficult than what you think it is. Although, boy, they've done a pretty good job. The CSU is on it. They got huge penalties for people that would dare to open a shop. But we've got Bud's Way up there. We've got another one up on Victoria that's still surviving. There are still the Medicinal Cannabis Dispensary. There's a whole bunch still, and us, that are access points for non-legal cannabis. And this war is not won by any means. And we'll see where it goes. We're not there yet. But Freddie was certainly right about the intentions of the Liberal government and Mr. Trudeau. Boy, the cops didn't like Mr. Trudeau.
No. They do now.
No, the cops that I was talking to at St. Thaddeus Day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, one in particular, he was like, "Oh, don't get me going on Trudeau." Because I
Wait,
mentioned
well,
something
no,
about...
he's not going to win another election. There's no fucking way.
Well, that hands it over to Polyev. And
or the NDP. The NDP are in second place right now.
The NDP are not going to win the election.
But...
You think they're in second place right now? Is that what the polls are showing?
Yep. And the Liberals are in third. He's lost 6% of his.
How close are the Liberals, or pardon me, the NDP with the Conservatives?
They didn't say. They didn't give me numbers.
Well, I can't see Mr. Singh pulling it off. I can see Mr. Polyev pulling it off. We can only hope.
Or maybe another majority where the PCs team up with NDP or something, just like NDP.
And the NDP continue to be in power through
right.
whichever group is
Something
there.
like that,
they
right,
hold the balance of power through whichever group is there.
Right. So I don't know.
Oh,
you never know about politics. I don't want to talk about politics because you never know how politics.
This system is so messed up. I used to think decades ago that there was some relief politically. That we could all vote for a party that would say the right things and then do the right things. Mm-hmm. But it's a two-party system in Canada. It always has been. The third party is there just as sort of this funny little thing that to help out. Somehow, they were poised, I think, to maybe take a federal election with Jack Layton.
Yes, with Jack, yes.
And then somehow, all of a sudden, Jack got cancer, and within a few months, he was a little old man, completely incapable of running a party or winning an election.
Yeah.
And that just cut the legs right out from underneath the NDP again. Mm-hmm. And here they are. I don't think they have the credibility myself.
No,
they've been propping up the Liberals through all of this. They're tainted by
right now. They just forced the government to have Telford testify about the Chinese influence in the election.
Chinese influencing of the election.
And if it comes out, they said they might have a non-confidence vote.
So what about the Russians? Do you think the Russians are trying to influence the Canadian elections? On any level? How about the Italians?
I don't know.
What about the Syrians?
I know.
There's all these different cultural groups. I'm really sure that they all have an agenda of what they would like to see from their local politician. But I'm sure that they have meetings.
We could do it to them.
Well, what I'm saying is this is supposed to be a democracy where people and groups can get together and try to influence elections.
Yeah.
They have people and they have issues, they have concerns, and they're going to want their concerns addressed from their cultural point of view.
We have the World Wide Web.
Sure.
Right? Before we were only talking
but now they're saying, but look, the World Wide Web's being used by the Chinese to try to influence the election.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, now if they're doing dirty tricks, if they're paying bribes to people, if they're lying and cheating and all that kind of stuff, I mean, maybe you address that, and maybe the Italians are too, and maybe the Swedes are. We don't know. But as communities, we have concerns, we have issues that are specific to us, and when there's an election on, we're going to go and try and have our voices heard in whatever way we can.
Yeah.
For the people that are cannabis consumers, I mean, we're a cultural group that's been put down and accused of trying to influence elections over the number of decades, because of course we have. Of course we have. We formed a party. Mm-hmm. And I think there's probably the Chinese Communist Party of Canada. I mean, there's certainly a Communist Party of Canada. Yeah. What, are they trying to influence the election? Of course they are. Everybody's trying to influence the election based on what their concerns are and who they are. Yeah. We can't help who they are. So all of this stuff is just a distraction. It's just a bloody distraction. It's to keep us focused on something else other than the real nubs of what's going on here, scared. Which is we're being overtaxed to death. And I mean it, to death. Yeah. There are so many people being displaced from their homes and businesses because of the economy that's going on here. That should be front and center. And instead what's going on is these municipalities are raising taxes like crazy. Yeah. And you wait. The province has got to do the same. So does the federal government. Look at all the money they've been giving away and spending so they could all look good and buy votes. They're going to have to get that back. So, we're going to be taxed literally, for many of us, to death. Taxed into the streets where we're homeless and depressed. And now there's some guy there that's token on something that might not be weed, but you got no weed, and you're depressed, and he starts laughing after he starts puffing on whatever he's puffing on, so you have a bloody puff.
Yeah.
That's going on here every day in this neighborhood. People are showing up here, new people every day on the downtown east side, showing up homeless, broke, desperate, confused, and don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
And so as they find other people who can sympathize with them, and they sit around in their groups, and these other people are using these other drugs, what do you think they're going to do?
They're going to get hooked.
Hey, and there could even be a safe supply.
Yeah.
And hey, we could go to the safe injection site.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's never. Not safe injection site. Never a safe injection of any sort, anywhere, anytime. At any time when a human being, or any other critter for that matter, wants to put some sort of a hollow needle into a blood vein and inject something in there, that ain't safe. So there's no such thing as a safe injection site, but that's what they like to call it.
Yeah.
So that when people are now desperate, poor, and faced with the opportunity, what choice are they going to make? Are they going to take a chance? Well, if it's a safe injection site, they could take a chance. If it's a safe supply, they can take a chance. So that's what's going on here all the time. And our government's policies are driving all of this. And so, yeah, excuse me if I'm a little upset here. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I want to punch somebody, you know? I'm like,
I'll go over here.
no, buddy, I love you. I love everybody. But I hate government policy. I hate greed. I hate, you know? I hate that good people are dismissed, marginalized, and then used as scapegoats to be able to justify government policies that just take tax dollars and pay a bunch of government cronies a bunch of money, and people are suffering in the process. That letter that I wrote to Health Canada should be rife with not just death and overdose, but corruption. That's what I really should be pointing out, is how bloody corrupt Health Canada must be. They must be. There's no other option. There's no other choice. They're not there, the Special Licensing and Exemptions Division, to try to figure out how to give the Cannabis Substitution Program and the Healing Wave the regulations that would make sense for those organizations to be able to continue the fabulous work of rescuing people from addiction, bettering their lives in a variety of ways, making the neighborhood safer and better, health for the neighbor. They're not trying to do that at all. They've never had a conversation with me, even virtually, not even by email, not even by phone, nothing. They've never come here to see what it is that we're doing. They're in the Special Licensing and Exemptions Division of Health Canada. Their job during a public health emergency is to figure out how to solve the emergency. We successfully demonstrated early on into the program, that's now over 6 years old, that here's a thing that's safe. We're handing out thousands and thousands of milligrams to people, and the only issue is that many of them, once or twice, eat too much and have a bad experience, and then regulate their own intake after that to what works for them. That's the only problem that's ever arisen from this.
Yeah.
The problems that are arising from what we're trying to deal with are suffering, misery, and death on extreme scales. And the government yap, makes a bunch of noise about how they're doing things, and they're helping, and they're putting millions of dollars into something, and some places, to try to address this issue. And what do we get out of those millions of dollars? Well, we get services for people where they can go and get a clean needle.
And clean supply.
Clean supply now is what they're talking about. Hey, let's do that. Oh yeah, it's going to be expensive, by the way. They don't ever talk about that. They're allowing the street to demand a safe supply so that they can seize on that at the right moment and implement a safe supply that is going to be expensive. And if you're poor and addicted, well, we'll pay for you. But it's not their money, it's tax dollars money that they're going to use to pay for it, like with all these other schemes. So This is just another big scam where these brilliant but extremely evil corporate assholes are preying on society and human beings to further their interests of money and control.
Yeah. It sucks.
It's
more than sucks, but yeah.
We're exposing it. I mean, they should probably try to stop me. I guess you're probably watching.
What they did.
They have, I guess.
Yeah, they sent the police.
Still don't know who firebombed the RV.
No.
Certainly know who arrested us and why now.
Yeah.
Certainly know that the federal crown is going ahead with, an attempt to try to put me behind bars and stop us from what we're doing here. But, they're just allowing this to continue. So week after week, I come on the show, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I got to do this because this is what has to happen. We have to let everybody know, all of you people watching, and some of you have never watched the show before.
Yeah.
We need to let you know what's going on here. We need to explain what this is about with us trying to provide this safe solution, and we can call our solution safe, for people, an option to use other than the hard drugs, but most importantly, a way to get off of those hard drugs, because it's that big barrier of withdrawal that keeps everybody on these drugs. The people out here on the street that are visible addicts and visibly suffering, they're visibly poor, they have, what do they call it, unstable housing, another word they're using now too. These people want off those drugs. They are not happy that they're out there pounding the pavement, doing whatever they have to do to get those drugs in their system, whatever amount of times every day that they have to do it. They have to do it. It's not that, oh goody, I want to go get some more of those drugs and feel really good again.
Yeah,
it's like, oh shit, I'm starting to cramp up. My head's starting to hurt. I'm sweating. Oh my God. And they got to go get something and get that into them quick, or they're not going to be okay at all. No. And then it's going to be pure hell for them. And they don't want to do that.
But
they
that's
can't
where your high dose edibles can help. Right?
That's what we're here to help with.
Yeah, that's what takes away all that
stress
and body cramps and stuff.
And we proved it. We proved it 6 years ago, because what are we now? We're into mid-March, so we've been doing it for a month and a half. By the time we'd been doing the program for a month and a half, we had shown it was safe.
Yeah.
And we already had people coming to us and telling us about how, with a couple of strong cookies or brownies or whatever, they could get through the night.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too long after that that they were telling us that they weren't using the other drugs anymore, that they're off those other drugs. And it was all since then till now that we get people every day coming here and telling us, thank you for being here. Please don't stop.
Yeah.
And those times when they've tried to stop us, when they've taken away our RV and arrested us and we were never going to stop, we put up a tent right away. We never left. When they arrested us and took the RV away, my people stood right on the sidewalk with the products that people needed. And until I got back with the RV, which I did a couple hours later after I went to the police station to try to complain about having been raided, we put the RV right back, and we never stopped, and we can't stop. But when those times happened, when we were close to stopping, when they seized our RV for several weeks,
so angry.
When we were working underneath the tent there, when it burned down and we were working underneath the tent there, and people, would come and say, oh my God, you're going to have to stop doing what you're doing. I mean, what am I going to do? How am I going to go back?
Yeah.
Do I have to use cocaine to try to, sleep or be okay? And other things. We got caught. This is what we were being told.
Yeah.
And the federal government thinks that they can refuse our application, and we need to stop doing what we're doing. And they've never come here to even check it out for themselves.
No, they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
It's not what they're concerned about.
No.
They don't meet around a table and say, how can we help the Cannabis Substitution Program and the Healing Wave and Mr. Magnuson continue to do this great work that they've obviously been doing. 6 years, we've never had a complaint.
And they're afraid that everybody else will want to do it.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
They even had the audacity to say that to me
Yeah.
in that meeting that we had 3 months. There's a lot to this story, and I'm not going to tell it all today, obviously. I've told enough of it, but there's more. 3 months after that application went in, 2.5 years ago, we did finally get a meeting with Health Canada where the lawyer, myself, and them were on the line together. And they firstly apologized. That was the first thing that was said. We're sorry that this has taken so long. Because they knew it. They knew that that's what our concern was. 3 months is really a long time when you're dealing with a public health emergency. Try going to war and being on the front lines for 3 months and see how long that feels to you. People every day are suffering and dying, and every day you're keenly aware that you're being handcuffed in what you're able to do in helping the situation, even though you have the ability to do it if you would get some support from government. But here you are waiting for this license, and it's 3+ months. And we finally get a meeting with them, and that's the first thing they say, of course, is we're sorry it took so long. We even put in with our application 3 months prior to that, another application at the same time for just an emergency temporary exemption from the Cannabis Act that would have allowed us to stay in the storefront that we were occupying and not have to move into the RV. But they didn't ever respond to that at all, other than the day after they got it, saying that they got it.
Yes,
But that's the last they ever said about that.
wow.
So 3 months later, they're telling us, we're sorry. And later in the conversation, they said what you said about, well, it's complicated. If we give it to you, then there's going to be other people that are going to want the same thing.
So other people want to save other
I said, well,
people's
that's a
lives.
good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
How can that be a bad thing?
Even from a political point of view, there's good political currency involved in doing that. And there's going to be some bad fallout if you don't.
Yeah.
But they said that. And they went on to say that, probably by early January, this was sometime in mid-December, that by early January they would have licenses for us in some form. And ever since then, all they said is, oh, Mr. Magnuson, our team is working diligently on your file every day, rest assured. I heard that a few times from Mr. Benoit Seguin. Whatever that means, however much that cost us all. And my point is they were never sitting around a table discussing how they could help us continue to do the fine work that we've been doing here. They've been spending a lot of time ignoring it, but probably a fair amount of time sitting at a table with their experts trying to figure out how to stop us. How to figure out how to say no to an application.
Just delay. And then they
That's the answer so far.
Yeah, and same with me.
And every day that they delay is on our side another day of demonstrating how effective this is. On their side, it's another day of reaping profits off of this horrible situation. And in the middle of that are 6 people a day dying in British Columbia. And it's way worse than that, right, folks? It's not
1,100 people a year, they say.
It's not just the 1,100 people a year dying. It's not just the death at all. It's the overdoses. The overdoses. There's overdoses going on regularly. People come out of it. They don't die in all cases. There are so many people walking around with their naloxone kits here.
Yeah.
Not just in this neighborhood, but throughout the city. And I suspect it's going on in other cities that you can see them hanging off of backpacks, and people have their naloxone kits. And if people are using, in this climate, in this, with the understanding of what's going on here, many of them are also prepared, if they're in circles of friends that are using and all those other things, it's the overdoses. Because once a person overdoses, there is serious damage done to their internal organs, to their brains. They nearly died. They were out of oxygen for a while. There's a whole bunch of chemical responses going on. It's the overdoses that are diminishing the capacity of the people involved with them. So it's not just the deaths that they talk about that are of such great concern with what's going on here during this overdose crisis. It is the overdoses by themselves, non-fatal, that are of great consequence to the people and the people's families and friends that have to go through that. So, it is really a corrupt situation that we're dealing with, unfortunately. That is the truth that we've been finding here. I keep hoping. I'm an optimist, and it's tough to be an optimist on this path, I'll tell you.
It's hard to have faith.
It's hard to keep faith.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even have faith. I kind of do. I have hope, and I have some faith. I still do. I still believe that it has to win eventually. And what I mean by having to win is we have to have much more sane government policy around cannabis and these other substances, rather than this continuing prohibition that is continuing to ruin people's lives and cost our society in so many ways so much. that's what's got to change here. For our part, we need a license. We just need a piece of paper with a signature on it. It would be so easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It would be.
You would think. You are the minister in charge of this department. It could be the Special Licensing and Exemptions Division of Health Canada. It could be the Federal Ministry of Health. It could be even probably the Justice Ministry. It now could be the special new Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions. It could be any one of those. And not just on a federal level. I'm pretty sure that if here in British Columbia, the provincial health minister, or the provincial minister of mental health and addictions, or maybe even the public safety minister, Mr. Farnworth, I think if any of those people just simply put their name and wrote it down on a piece of paper that gave us permission to continue what we're doing, I think that's all it would take.
Yeah.
But none of those people are willing to do it. None of those people are really willing to talk to me. I write them letters, I send them letters, I ask for their response, and just a response would be good.
Yeah.
I want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
But they don't write me any responses. They're ignoring it. They're trying to say that they don't know. They're trying to say that they never got that email, that they weren't aware of the CSP and that it was really actually working for people. They thought it wasn't working for something. They don't know. That's what they're going to try to say.
Yeah.
They just didn't know. We've seen it in courts already. We've seen it in the Warneke, Siemens, and Martin case, where Health Canada, in court, telling their side of the story, sent somebody there who was hired after all of the incidents went down. And his constant reply through the whole thing was, I can't speak to that, I wasn't there at the time.
Never heard that. Yeah.
That's how they do it.
Yeah.
That's what's, another aspect, another thing that we are able to expose, another thing that we're talking about here. This is not about whether or not a government can wrap their brains around cannabis helping with an overdose crisis. This is about a government that knows full well all the benefits of cannabis and the power that it would have to knock the shit out of their corporate buddies' pocketbooks, because people would be using cannabis instead of so many other things, and the things that we use would be so much cheaper if they were made from cannabis products, and we would be so much better off and richer if our governments weren't spending the billions and trillions of dollars that they've spent already and continue to do on enforcing these ridiculous policies that dive our economy down the tubes, from which the rich people take advantage. You think when people lose their homes disappear?
No.
Homes don't disappear. They go into the pockets of somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody else gets those businesses. Somebody else gets those houses. And who do you think that is?
Right.
It's not the poor people.
No.
Not the ones that are suffering because they had trouble keeping up with the increased expenditures of everything in the marketplace and all the rest that's gone on. No. This is a corrupt world that we're living in, and somehow, some way, it needs to change.
It does.
I think we're beyond armed revolution, and I'm not a fan of violence, and I would not incite anyone to a violent overthrow. I don't think it would work in the first place. It's as dumb as trying to get everybody to not even vote. I don't think and in fact, I think a violent uprising would simply play into the hands of those people that are in charge of us, that own us, that are already so well armed with not just weapons, but people and so many other things they have in place to put down anything like that. I think that we have to do it subtly. I think that we have to do it inch by inch, to not give up any more ground, to not settle for being slaves and being oppressed by corporations that can monopolize on commodities and run protection rackets to do all of that. We need a form of governance that protects us. That's what we need. We need to have public servants that are servants of the public, who are in this modern day and age able to be keenly aware of the threats to the public people, which are corporate greed, lust for control, all of these things that are permeating and entangling our systems right now and causing us all of these problems, to the point where a life-saving natural herbal product could be easily available to combat a public health emergency of death and overdose and addiction, and it's being resisted to the point that it is by our federal government
years.
and all the people down below it
Yeah.
as well.
For years.
For 100 years.
Yep.
You want to go, don't you?
Yeah.
I can see
well,
you're
it's,
itching to go.
it's like
You're looking at time.
25
What a
years.
what a
You're gonna
producer
talk
you
about
are.
The CSP.
I don't have much to say about the CSP.
And then you're going to go outside.
I know. We finished 9 minutes early last week. Not,
Yeah, we
not
did.
that there's
We
really
did.
a time frame.
No.
I try to give people 2 hours of my time once a week, on a live stream.
Sometimes it's longer, sometimes
But
it's
I
shorter.
don't. It's all really about the content,
Yeah.
and we don't try to fabricate content.
No.
I let it flow as best I can.
Yeah.
We don't create a lot of content ahead of time. I spend a little bit of time thinking about what we're going to talk
And I
about and
send
what
you
we need to
cannabis
talk about.
stories.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So-
but it's not all rehearsed, pre-planned, and it's certainly not all timed out by
No.
any stretch.
No. And there's no
it's just,
teleprompter that we're reading from or
I
anything.
want one though.
Do you?
I do. I would like that.
But that
So-
would mean more work for you to type it out so you can read it later.
This is never comfortable for me.
Oh, really?
I mean, I felt better the last 20 minutes or so talking about this stuff. I think
Yeah.
I touched a nerve within myself, and
There you
I'm
go.
getting it out the way that I
Getting it
like
back,
to.
right.
And this is what I really want to share with people. Every show is the passion that I have and the way that I feel about these things with the insights that I have. People find that valuable, and for me, it's valuable to get it off my chest, and that's why I do it. But I'm never all that comfortable doing it. So teleprompter, see, the artistic side of me, I was a singer,
Yeah.
and I played trumpet in the school stage band and in the regular band. And as a singer, you rehearse everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I sang in the
So
chamber
it's
choir, and I
weird.
sang in the main choir, and we would go over our parts, over and over again until we knew them like that. And still, we would have our conductor up there, sort of prompting us and giving us the da-da-da, da-da-da. And here I got nothing going on.
Just talking about that person, and there you go.
I
right?
don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of the point, is that I would like to have things really prepared, practiced, rehearsed, to know what it is that we're going to talk about and say, to do it in the right, succinct order so we get the message out properly. And a big part of that would be a teleprompter where I'd written everything out ahead of time.
Right.
And if I could learn to follow that script while looking in the camera and smiling and getting people to believe that I wasn't reading, that it was just there.
You heard Neil needs a teleprompter. You got one
No,
sitting
I
in your
don't think-
living room or your garage or something. Please send it to Vancouver to Neil so we can set it up.
Yeah, and
he'll feel
maybe I
more
can
professional for
maybe
you.
I can take the time in my life, which I don't have,
No.
to spend hours and hours rehearsing and practicing
I know.
the upcoming show, and then maybe if I practice hard enough, I can learn how to talk into the camera while reading the teleprompter, but not letting anybody know that I'm reading stuff.
I think that
None of that's gonna happen.
I think off script is always best because it's from the heart and you're not reading a bunch of words.
Well, yeah, we're in our 4th year now.
Yeah.
I think we're
Well,
not too
we're
far.
19 shows short of 200 shows.
200. I thought I'd be good at it after 10.
We had a chocolate cake for 100. I don't know what we're going to do for 2.
We need to do something.
We'll have to
for
have
two.
a big smoothie for you.
Something's gonna happen.
With a
now.
200 on the glass or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, you want to talk a moment about that?
No, whatever.
For those people that have watched the show before, I'm sure there's things that they're expecting us to update as we go.
Yeah.
And as you people know, I've had some issues health-wise with a blockage in my throat
Yeah.
that's preventing me from eating solid food. So I'm eating pablum. No, I'm not.
No.
But I am sort of.
Something like that, yeah.
I'm blending, food that I would otherwise eat in some cases, not all different things that I would otherwise eat, and managing to drink it down. But still, it's not easy. And I've been waiting a long time to get some help with this. I had an appointment with a gastroenterologist, and that finally happened. I got my appointment coming up on the 27th.
Monday.
Coming right up. And prior to that, there was also a barium swallow that he had ordered, which is a really interesting thing. They've got to send it one dose at a time on a case-by-case basis from back east. It's radioactive. And so you drink this stuff, and then they do an x-ray, and they can see the progression of the fluids going down and the mechanisms of swallowing that
You
are
haven't
going
been
on.
glowing in the dark from drinking this stuff?
No, but I sure was sick that night. I
You
threw
were,
up
right?
a lot.
Yeah.
And the next day I had metabolic acidosis again. It's like the 3rd time I've had that in the last several months, where your body just feels like you were just doing calisthenics for a long time and you can't hardly even move. Your joints are all seizing up and you're so tired, but you're almost too tired to sleep. It's a very interesting condition, and now I've had it for a third time, and I think it was triggered by the thing. But the good news is it's progressing. Jury's still out on whether or not there's a proper solution for it. I'm not going to comment or think too much about what I am being told, because there's some positive possibilities, there's some negative possibilities.
Yeah. But that's with everything, right?
Yeah, although I'm hoping that the
never go into an operation. Well, I guess being with tonsils.
Well, this is more serious than that. It depends on the placement of where it is as to whether or not it can be fixed. If you Google some of the conditions that are going on here, there's statements like this is not reversible. So, but like I said, I'm withholding all judgments on those things until
they've got microscopic cameras.
I'm a
go
unique
down
individual.
There and do something really quick and
you would think
non-intrusive now. So
there's something about it being below my vocal cords, which is an issue.
Okay.
To do with exactly what
you're
you're talking about.
The vocal cords, right?
So I'll see with this appointment. It's only a virtual appointment to begin with, and then we'll go from there.
They can do heart surgery through a man's penis, right, or something like that, through the veins, and they do all that. Yeah. So we're like, wow.
Like I say, I'm not gonna defeat anything or come to any conclusions negatively whatsoever. We'll see what they all say, and then I'll make decisions based on that. It's hard to know. I mean, I do have some faith in where we're at.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you should bring up what you just brought, because I've been very blessed in my life.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I'm healthy and fit. I had parents who cared about me, even though they showed it in strange ways. But I would say a product of a decent home, a decent upbringing where I haven't had to experience the traumas of war in my backyard. My traumas have been limited compared to what other people have suffered globally and historically, and even here domestically. So I feel I'm very blessed. But it could have been very different for me. And I mentioned how my upbringing in Surrey got me really close to being involved with the wrong people doing the wrong things. And I'm really glad that hockey came along and kind of pulled me out of that. And my upbringing, the smarts that I was born with, helped me stay off of those paths. But the one thing that was completely out of my control that would have altered my life in dramatic ways was that I was born with a club foot.
Yeah.
And I was born at a time, in 1957, where they had just come up with a method of dealing with people that had that affliction.
Yeah.
It was crude, as most human inventions are to begin with. This one was simply a steel bar that with bolts and nuts.
Yeah.
And they drilled a hole in my baby shoes, and it held my feet apart.
Yeah.
And so that I can run, I can play hockey. I'm fine. A little bit of a turn in of my hip that kind of wants to go back to where it was when I was born initially, but nothing of any consequence at all. Had I not been born when I was born, had I been born a decade earlier, even 5 or 6 years earlier, likely I just would have gone through my life as many other children did that I witnessed growing up. That had shoes with one heel so much bigger,
my friend Mike had one of those.
Or other afflictions that they had with their legs that made them cripples.
Yeah.
And those people had a really tough go of it. I don't know, maybe I would have been a cripple that embraced life and did wonderful things. I have no idea. But I wouldn't have been maybe I would have been roller skating across Canada, for freedom. I doubt I would have been standing at the front of the stage for 420. Singing "No Cannabis" to hundreds of thousands of people, which to me, it gives me such incredible energy. Cannabis is another reason that I'm excited about 420.
I get to sing it with you today at this time.
Do you want to rehearse it once?
You're gonna have to give me the words.
Oh, you
don't.
But
I know most of the words. Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
I do know.
I got to practice some. I got to do it at St. Fatty's Day.
I know I can match your voice because I've done it while you've been singing it on the camera and stuff.
We should rehearse off camera.
We should.
We shouldn't just spring this on the audience.
No.
That's what I mean. I really should have some more direction in my show. There should be some pre-planning so I don't do stuff like that.
420 is on a Thursday. We're gonna have a show the Tuesday before.
Oh, you want me to sing it on air?
No. We can rehearse after the show or something. 2 days before the show or something.
I'll send you the words.
Send me the words, please. Yes. All right. I'm gonna go back to producing.
Okay.
All right. And you got like 15 minutes. So you can talk about.
We'll wrap it up probably by 6 o'clock. I reckon.
We'll see you next week.
See you next
check
week.
out Cannabis.
You'll see them next week. You'll see me when you move over there and then follow me to the RV.
All right.
We want to be telling the truth all the time. No special effects, folks. Glenn's not really leaving. He's just not on camera at this point because where would I be without him? And Anil before him. And a big thanks to Cannabis Culture and the Pot TV platform for allowing me to have the show. Something I haven't really been saying as much since Anil departed. But I am happy that I have this opportunity because I have a lot of things on my chest that I want to get off. This does give me at least the inclination that maybe these waves of information that I put into this device in front of me can be spread out and maybe it'll make a difference somewhere. That maybe there's something that people can learn here that will help shape the world down the road. And so, I'm very, very happy that I get to do the show, even though I don't find it anywhere near as energizing and as positive for me as I do when I'm standing in front of a live audience and I get actual feedback from people that they're listening to what I say and they're nodding their head in agreement or whatever it is. So anyway, happy to be here, happy you're here watching, and I hope we're all getting something out of this. This is a show that started when I was already in the midst of doing the Cannabis Substitution Program. And so the Cannabis Substitution Program was just a thing that I did a couple days a week. And the show was something that I did once a week from Cannabis Culture Studios. But then as things evolved with the Cannabis Substitution Program and our journey led us to having a storefront, that changed how we did the show. Once we'd been doing the show for once we'd been doing the Cannabis Substitution Program for 2 years, 2.5 years, the City of Vancouver passed a motion to support us. And after a subsequent meeting with the councillor that put that motion forward and got it passed, we had an agreement that we would find a storefront. It was all rosy and flowers and good, and they were going to send city staff in and that they would provide us with some sort of a license in the meantime. And then we did find a storefront, and we did start doing our program 7 days a week. Well, we started at 6 days a week for the first year and a half or so. The show just became part of what my life was at that point, which was now operating a store all these days of the week, 8 hours a day, and quickly into that we had city licensing show up instead of city staff show up. And city licensing was unaware of the motion that was passed and unconcerned by it. Their position is that any store that was selling cannabis, and we then had to start selling cannabis. It wasn't just a giveaway that we did for 3.5 years. Once we got the store, we had to start selling it because we needed to have a model that would sustain what we were doing, that could pay the rent and pay for the utilities and pay for staff and all the other things like that. So that's what we did. Well, city licensing was of the opinion that if you're doing anything like that, you have to have a license from higher ups than the city. And they didn't care about the motion that had passed. They were unaware of it. And so they threatened the landlord and they threatened us. And when I approached Rebecca Bly, the councillor, about that, she said that, yeah, that's right. We really have to follow the lead of the provincial government. That was that conversation. That quickly turned into being the federal government that was going to oversee any license that we would get that would allow us to do what we were doing. And so in a very timely and quick fashion, not ever trying to hide anything, not ever trying to delay or avoid anything, we put together a really good application for Health Canada. That's over 2.5 years ago now. And we wait, and we wait, and we wait. And so the show became an update every week about where we were at with that. We began broadcasting from here pretty much as soon as we got the storefront. For the first number of shows, we did it from the loft up top there while we had the store operating down here, and it was beautiful and it was wonderful, and we had no clue that it was going to be years later and the show was still going to be about our quest to get a license. But that's just how it's evolved, and that's what is. And this is such an important thing that we're doing here, and with what's going on, that I need to use this show as a vehicle to continue to explain week after week after week to the increasing number of people that are watching that haven't seen before, but more importantly, probably to any authorities that are out there that might want to tune in and see what I have to say. I want to be clear every week about how we got here and what it is that we're doing, and that's what the show's about. So this is no different than any of those, except every show has, I think, a whole bunch of other content in there. I think that we managed to cover a bunch of different aspects of different things that make each show unique, and then there's something there for everybody, including all those poor people out there like yourself perhaps that have heard me say these same things over and over again. But please bear with us. We do need to, in my opinion, keep the show up to date so that any show on its own can stand on its own and be the voice that might be the only one witnessed by those people that are really going to be able to make a difference here, and by people that can help us, because there's many of you out there that perhaps have a way to help us, and everybody can help us a little bit by writing a letter, making a telephone call, sending an email, talking to the media, talking to friends, all of those sorts of things, and we mention that every week as well. So just briefly, what this is about a public health emergency that started about 7 years ago of people dying of overdose from a poison drug supply. Having personal knowledge of that situation, and that we had a dispensary, Vancouver's second dispensary, for 3.5 years, right at Main and Hastings, the main center for drug trafficking and probably the visible drug addicts that there is. And surprisingly, many of those people that were under that affliction and in that neighborhood came into our little dispensary, which we had a big sign over top, and they came in and talked to us, and we had high dose edibles available, and we learned during that exercise that high dose edibles could get people off the hard drugs. And we had many people coming to us subsequently telling us about how cannabis had saved their life and gotten them onto this different path, and they don't use that other stuff anymore, and thank you very much. So fast forward now to 2016, because that was way back in 2004 and up until 2007. But in 2016, another public health emergency, overdose deaths, poison drug supply, and I felt incumbent on myself, having the knowledge that the high dose edibles could really help. I took the responsibility to go and first get an approval from the local advocacy group Vandu that is the voice for the visible addicts here, and the non-visible addicts as well, I might add. And they agreed with a collaboration where we would hand out high dose edibles, make it as easy as possible for people to get them, and that's what we did. Prior to doing that, though, I spent a couple months. I went to City Council and explained it all to them, held up a bag of high dose edibles and said, this is the real safe supply that needs to be easily available to people. I went to the Vancouver Police Board and told them all about it, and got some handshakes and some, thank you for caring and doing what you're going to do there. And they said, there's not much we can do for you. And I said, I know, but I want you to be aware of what it is that we're doing, because, I want to be able to keep doing it. And so for 3.5 years, we had long lineups outside of Vandu, right up from Main and Hastings, of people waiting to get high dose edibles. And so now having a storefront and having a city saying that you're going to have to get permission from higher ups, and the higher ups turned out to be Health Canada, and we put in our application, and they don't respond in a timely fashion, to the point where we do get evicted from the store. As far as our ability to sell, we are still paying rent all these years later, going on 3 years now. We're still paying rent here. I mean, I use the space, but it's money that could be better spent if it was an actual store. Instead, we're in an RV, our third RV, but for almost, for 2.5 years almost now, we've been in the RV outside there, providing similar service to what we could do from the store. Not quite as well, but we're doing the best we can with what we got while we wait. And we wait. And we wait. So we were also arrested and charged with selling without a license back in May. after all that time, over a year and a half of being in the RV, we're less than a block away from the VPD station. They're very well aware of us. The courthouse is a half a block away. Prosecutors and judges and sheriffs all walk by every day on the weekdays, and the police are driving by every day, and they know all about us. So a year and a half later, we got arrested and charged, and we're still facing those charges, although we've kind of turned it around. Now it's a constitutional challenge, a charter challenge, where we're going to take Health Canada to task about why it is that they haven't given us a license to do what we've demonstrated beyond any shadow of any doubt is something that needs to be supported, that is probably one of the best tools in the toolbox for fighting this war against addiction, overdose, and death. So we'll see how that goes. We're October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We're going to be in the courthouse at 222 Main Street in Vancouver. I hope a lot of people come to that. It'll be a practice run-through in front of a judge to see what the Crown has, and for the judge to decide whether it's worth wasting taxpayer dollars on proceeding with. And I really believe it is, at this point, well worth taxpayer dollars to proceed with this and get some sort of a decision finally that exposes the corruption of the federal government and all levels of government to below them as well, that entrenches the proper right to access to cannabis and other plant medicines. I really think that if we can get this established properly in the courts, if we can not eliminate one or two of the stupid regulations within the Cannabis Act, but eliminate the entire Cannabis Act. That document has no business in a free society whatsoever and needs to be totally kicked right the heck out of our society. I hope we get a disbanding of the CSU. I hope we get the ability for low barrier access community cannabis stores to be able to operate every place where they're needed, and they're much needed right across Canada. As long as we're fighting this epidemic of overdose and deaths, we really need to have low barrier cannabis available in all these places where this is going on, and it's going on in all the places. So that's what I think we might be able to achieve by continuing on with this court case. So I do hope that the judge sees the benefit in all of that, in getting this issue taken care of once and for all. Enough already with having to take us to court and vice versa. There's a dozen and a half times now that we've brought Health Canada and the federal government into courts. We've won almost every single one of those times, and that's resulted in minor changes here and there, not much at all. The Cannabis Act is really nothing more than the MMAR, written with slight differences, but hardly anything at all. The government has been trying to enforce their agenda of control over the cannabis community and cannabis consumers and the sale and production of cannabis since right back in the beginning, when they decided that was the best thing they could do, that they can't obviously maintain this immoral war on people that would prefer to consume cannabis because people are getting too smart. The media is getting too powerful. Social media is coming along. All these different reasons. And mostly because people wouldn't shut up about it. We weren't going to go away. The hippies weren't going to stop fighting that war because they knew how important it was for future generations. And the children of the hippies haven't stopped fighting this war because they understand, and they are the activists of today. And we're not going to stop, and good people are not going to stop as long as there is this type of serious injustice going on in the world. They're just not going to stop. So what do they decide to do, these clever, corporately elite parasites? If you can't beat them, join them. If they want legalization, regulation, let's give it to them. And they're smart. And they figured it out. But we still won't quit, because it is still just as wrong now as it ever was. Just because people can have some cannabis and not get arrested, that's great. But the fact that the mechanisms of prohibition are still being financed by our tax dollars, that this protection racket now for the government cartel of supplying suspect weed at outrageous prices and not in the forms that people really need, that can't be tolerated. We will not tolerate it. We will continue to fight until the least amongst us, the vulnerable, the poor, the sick, until they all get reasonable access to cannabis. good people will continue to fight this fight. And I hope that you're all good people. And I hope that you're going to help us with this fight in one form or another. I hope that you're going to have a 420 wherever you are. And if you're in Vancouver, come to Thornton Park and buy a booth to support what we're doing there. This is an expensive production that we're putting on because it's important that we maintain the momentum that 420 had in Vancouver as being epic productions. It's how it's evolved here. It's what makes it work. It's the reason that we're able to get up and have media attention and have thousands and tens of thousands and more than that of people hear what it is we have to say. As activists, that's the biggest thing. You want to be heard. You want to be heard by masses of people, and you want to be heard by the influencers of government policy. And that's a frustrating thing to try to do sometimes. These days we have social media, and that can help. But governments can also cancel people. They can also figure out ways around that. So we will just continue to do what we're doing as best we can. And I hope that eventually, I believe that eventually, they will have to capitulate. And the poor and the sick and the disenfranchised amongst us will be able to have reasonable access to cannabis in all of its forms and all the good things that go along with that, all the benefits to society and all
And
that.
how do they get a booth and sponsor?
420 protest 420 at gmail.com
Yes.
is how you can find out all the information you need to know about sponsoring 420 and getting a booth there. The booths are all reasonably priced. There's only a few left of the premier booths. There was only a few of them to begin with because we wanted to make almost all the booths at $300. We think that's a reasonable price, and it's a value that will allow us to do what needs to be done, hopefully. I mean, there might be, as there was in many years gone by, money needed to be put in by the organizers to make it all work, and we are prepared to do that this year as well. But we really would like to have it financed by itself, and I think it's a great opportunity for people to get their message out about their brand or whatever it is through the sponsorship. There's going to be a huge big screen TV there. It's going to be playing all kinds of different things. It's going to be showing clips from the crowd. It's going to be an opportunity for people to advertise and sponsor that way. So that's one way of doing it. There's banner space on the stage. There's shout-out ability going on there as far as we can shout the name of your company out and maybe say a couple of good things about it. You never know. All of those different things. And just to be there, to take part in this is historic, as always. To have been at 420, at Thornton Park, because this is going to be fantastic. I think this is going to be way better than we've ever had if it happens the way that it looks like it's going to. Weather a factor, of course. But to have it laid out the way that it's laid out, to have all of these paths that are connecting all of these little village areas that have plenty of space for booths all the way around them, inside facing, and booths in the middle. I think there's going to be a vibe that goes on in those little villages. I think that the whole scene is going to be historic. It's going to be something that people that were part of it are going to remember for a long time and take with them throughout their life, and the connections that are made there and all of the rest of it. I think we're back to being able to have 420 like we were back at Sunset Beach in 2019, where it wasn't just Cypress Hill that made that such an epic event. It was the whole package. It was how many people were there. It was how many vendors were there. It was what the message from the stage was all day long. It was all of the vibe. It was an epic, epic event that I think for anybody that was there, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, holy crap, I feel like getting a t-shirt that says, I was at the 2019 420 in Vancouver. And I think that's how we're bringing it back. I think that the world's biggest joint, the world's greatest hot box, to have Mercules there, to have some other great acts that are all just getting really pumped about putting on a great show for the people of Vancouver. I think for the speeches that are going to happen, there's some powerful people that have a lot to say, and boy, we need to say a lot still. First and foremost, this is a protest. If you go to 420 Vancouver, you are taking part in a monumental protest that has been evolving over years and continues to get proper media attention and continues to shape the world that we live in. I think you want to be there. So 420 protest 420 at gmail.com is how you can be involved as a sponsor or to get a booth or just come on down. Also, plenty of free space. We did that on purpose. We always do. The free space, of course, doesn't last long. So if you don't want the hassle of getting up early in the morning and having to go out there and try to, hang on to a space, because there's no organization of that. I don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to go there and see who's what or what. So it's a little bit of chaos, and we understand that. But that free area is plenty. And there's lots of opportunity to go there as well. But if you want the security of having a spot set aside and you can show up at 9 o'clock in the morning and set your booth up without any worrying about who's where or where you're going to put your stuff, that's the best way to do it, in my opinion. $300 is a very small price to pay for a day long of having a booth. It's been over $1,000 in 420s gone by, and other ones that I'm hearing about around. So come on down and support us. Let's have a great 420. Let's have unity in the park. Let's unite ourselves back in the park. Get back on the track that we were on before the pandemic separated us and pulled us apart. I really hope everybody's going to be there. I know I'm running a little bit late. We're going to wrap it up pretty quick. But that's what's going on. I hope to see you all at Thornton Park at 420. And if you're not in Vancouver, of course, you're not going to be there. And I hope you have a great 420 wherever you are. I hope you use this day to be a day where you think about how we can make this better, how we can improve the lot of those people who don't have proper, easy access to cannabis. Wherever you are, maybe you do. Maybe you're growing plants and it's no big deal. Maybe you got friends that supply you. Maybe it's easy. Maybe there's stores that you can support where you are. I don't know where those stores are, but there are some here actually that aren't too bad. Although the prices are still high, even in the non-government stores, because of course they're facing the loss of property and liberty and all the rest of it. And those are prohibition prices being charged. So in any case, we shouldn't be allowing this situation to continue too much longer. If we all get together, we can reach critical mass. We can make it work. So as we all construct our letters and our emails and think about what we're going to say when we're talking to these people, let's understand that we are joining together with a huge multitude of other people, and that our little voice adds to the greater huge voice, and with it, maybe we break the crammel's back. Maybe we reach critical mass, and maybe just the world will change in a positive way for us. So that's our hope. That's what we're trying to accomplish. That's the change that we're looking for. These are the truths that we're telling you along the way to help you understand how to make all that happen. I hope you're with me. Speaking of being with me, let's go outside and have a brief little, as it's been lately anyway, look at what's going on with our RV. So that all that I'm saying is not just a story that I've told, but there's some reality to it.
Cool, it's not a story.
The weather report this week from Vancouver is, oh my God, use is where you want to be.
No snow here.
No snow. There's a little bit of a cool breeze, but you're going to come to really appreciate that. And some of you people in hotter climates, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. A little bit of a cool breeze is just fine.
That's nice, yeah.
But yeah, what another gorgeous day here in Vancouver. And other than the tragedy and the hardship that we see around us as the economy sets in and people, are visibly homeless and visibly disenfranchised. Other than that, it's a great place to be. And there's mountains, and there's ocean, and there's countryside, and there's islands, and there's boats, and all of these other wonderful things here in Vancouver. So if you're not in Vancouver, you might want to visit Vancouver and see what I'm talking about. And if you can do it around April 20th, wow, you can take part in the world's greatest hot box, the world's biggest joint, and a whole lot more going on there. This is our beloved RV, the third one in the series. This is the Ganja Mobile, the weed wagon, whatever it is, it's iconic in the neighborhood. You can be on the streets around this area and you can hear people talking on the corner about the weed wagon and the Ganja Mobile, and we are really well understood and known by this community, maybe by so many of these cars that drive by as well. Because we put out our signs. We get as much coverage as we can. People read our signs on the way by. We don't have too much choice, and I stand and watch them do it many times. And especially when the light turns red at the corner there. Well, anybody in this position and for a few cars back, well, they want to know what it says on the back of that RV there. And so we think we're doing a pretty good job of getting that message out as well. I'm told of other initiatives that are happening, because of what we're doing here and people understanding that this is something that works for people and this is a real serious need in not just our community but many other communities as well. We have a break in the traffic. Let's go in. Welcome. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well.
What's going there?
Never better.
Never better. Never better.
Yes.
I kind of agree. In this particular unit, the weather's never been better. This is about as good as it gets.
That's true.
And your day's been good as well, eh? This is Dexter.
I would definitely say so. It's helped me be a more patient and compassionate person in general, which are two things that we could all use some work on, I think, if we're just used to being in the working world all the time, just taking care of ourselves. You don't
see this.
we don't see this. Yeah. Thank you.
It's wonderful, and so we give those out to people as they need them at the door there. We also have seed cookies, which are really, really cool because they're very nutritious, and I think Casey's are too. Casey would want to have her cookies very nutritious. I'm sure she's doing that.
Yes.
And so we have Michael the Cookie Monster providing really nutritious, infused, of course. All of these products are infused. And these ones are quite a bit stronger. And Michael's cookies, he's made them a little bit stronger as well. We're getting really good feedback on that. The people that are using those are really appreciating the help that they get from that. And also we have Samantha, who's been awesome. She's making brownies for us and these other muffin things as well.
Her edibles made me late today, actually.
Her edibles made me late. Yeah. So this is what we do. We never turn anybody away here. We have two different things going on in the RV. One is the Healing Wave Dispensary, which provides the space and brings in the money that's necessary to keep the shop, because that's part of our address on our application and is necessary for what we do. And then there's the Cannabis Substitution Program in a collaboration with the Healing Wave. And the Cannabis Substitution Program provides 420 milligrams of a variety of different high-dose edibles to the members. We have 269 members that can come once every 4 days and get that 420 milligrams. And then we have all these other people that don't have money, they're destitute, they're desperate, and they can't get on the program. We started a waiting list back when we opened the store. Once we got to 250, we capped it at that to make sure we'd be able to sustain that. We let it get to 269 special cases, and then we've capped it at that. But there's a bunch of other people that really deserve to be on that list. It would be part of our program if the government would just get off its ass, stop being corrupt, and provide us with a piece of paper that has a signature on it that would allow us to have a storefront again, and then to expand our operations and to be able to expand the amount of people that we're helping with the CSP. But in the meantime, we have this cap. But the point is, we don't send anybody away empty-handed. When they come here, when they're in need of something, they're not part of the program, they don't have money, and we sell things really cheap here as well. So for the most part, people get what they need for just $1 or $2 or whatever. But some people don't have that either. And some people are trying hard to get off that stuff, and they need a boost. And so if they need more than what they can afford, if they can't afford anything, we make sure that they get one of those cookies, seed cookies, or Casey's cookies, or muffins, or brownies, or something.
Yes, I do.
And that's what we're doing here. We have unofficially expanded the program to anybody and everybody that comes along that really needs it. But officially, we're still stuck at 269 members, and that's what we want the government to give us a license for, is so that we can officially expand that, and officially put people into these programs where it's not just haphazard, but they can come and get what they need as they need it. So that's what's going on. We're carrying on. Every day without a raid is a good day. Every day that we operate is one day closer to, I believe, getting that piece of paper, and it's one day more that enforces this demonstration of the efficacy and the safety of what we're doing. I thank all the people that help us. I mean, our donors are so special. Oh, Miss D. I'm so sorry, Miss D. How did I forget that? I was going to wear the hat again, but yeah, got a really nice donation from her again, a bunch of sours and candies infused that really help give us a boost here. And check her out. I think if you just Google Miss D.
Yeah, I don't remember what.
Sorry, I'm not wearing the hat.
It's the candy, the candy bar,
She's
right?
the candy bar, yeah.
Yeah,
Google the candy bar.
CC, I think it is. It's www.thecandybar.cc, I do believe.
Good for you, and if not, it'll be close.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah, and she's got a variety of great products, and I really want to support the people that support us and help us, although I really can't because there's too many of them, and I don't have time, and I can't, whatever. But thanks for that. And also, I was on the island visiting some friends over there and got a really nice donation from there as well. They don't need to have their names mentioned, they said, so that's fine. But it's these donations that really make it work here. That's what's always made the CSP work. Without it, it doesn't work. And so thank you so much. I'm so grateful to those people that have allowed us to do what we do here. And I know I speak for all the team of people that work for me that this has given us great insights in our life. It's as Dexter said, it's increased our patience and our compassion, certainly our understanding about the plight of some people and how it can be, and how blessed we are to have what we have here. And we all feel blessed that we're able to give back the way that we are. To be able to hand somebody a free edible or a free pack of edibles for the day, that warms your heart. And especially the response that we get from people as we do that, we know we're making their day. And when you can make several people's day in a day, well, you're pretty blessed to be able to do that. And I think we all feel that here for sure. So thank you so much to the donators that allow us to, on their behalf, feel like we're angels and doing something when really all we're doing is passing along this great gift given to us by the people that donate their time and their money and all the other stuff that they do to make this work.
It's really hard to see.
We'll be back again next week. We'll be 1 week closer to 420. Remember that. 420protest420@gmail.com can get you a booth or get you a sponsorship opportunity or just help you understand what it's all about there. And this is not a non-profit organization that's putting on 420 at the park, but we are doing it in a non-profit fashion. Everything will be open and transparent, and all monies raised beyond what is necessary to pay the costs of what's going on here. And I take no money. Most of the other organizers aren't taking any money for anything. If they are, it's for actual tangible things that are of a cost to them. And any monies left over, as in previous years, will be handed over to mainstream charities in society like the Fireman's Burn Fund or the Children's Hospital or something like that. So let's get involved in 420. A month is not very long. It goes pretty fast. Time to make your signs up. Time to get your clothes in order. Time to roll some fatties and get your products in line. And we'll carry on next week with another episode of the quest for a community-based low barrier access cannabis store. And was there something else I was going to say?
No, we're good.
So yeah,
Make sure they have fun.
have a good time for the next week or so. Make sure that you add value rather than take value from whatever situations you're in, if possible. Be a giver, not a taker. Be kind to everybody that you come in contact with. You never know what other people are going through or have gone through, and if they're not acting very nicely, well, that probably just means that they went through something that you wished you wouldn't have to see or go through as well. So be kind to them. Be kind to yourself, most importantly. I mean, everything starts at home. If you're not in a position of being able to help yourself, then you can't help anybody else as well. And as you're doing all of that, you know what I say if you've seen me before. It's been my mantra for years and years. It's how I leave my friends most of the time. Make sure you have as much fun as you can while you try to change the world.